Oh hey, I think I have a bite. Issei says as he feels a light pull on his fishing rod. He held his rod still for a couple of tense seconds before the line was pulled, indicating that he hooked a fish. Really? Matsuri came over to him with a fishing net and a bucket of stream water that already held some fishes within. Yup, a feisty one too. The brunette said as he attempts reel in his second fish of the day. Matsuri fished out a valiantly struggling medium-sized fish with the net in her hands. Swiftly removing the hook, she gently displaced the fish into the pail of lake water that held a number of other fishes. That makes 8. This number should be about enough. Everyone, we have enough now. Matsuri calls out to the other 2 fishers from further along the stream. Dirt jolted awake from his nap and knocked over the fishing rod that was being held to his side by 2 big stones. The middle-aged man looks around and half-heartedly wipes off his dribble before his brain starts to process what's happening around him. Naruto looks at the fish within his hand, shrugged and threw it back into the water. He then started to waddle back to shore to dry himself off and throw on the rest of his clothes. Apparently Naruto logic equates that all ninjas must have a semi-tolerable mastery of bare-handed fishing techniques. I'll start making the dough and noodles, the blonde said as he walks to the table that held the ramen supplies Matsuri had spread out earlier. I'll start on the broth, Matsuri declares as she follows Naruto to the table. Me and Issei will clean the fish, Dirt announces as he gets off his lawn chair and walks to Issei with the gathered tools for gutting and cleaning the fishes that were caught. Issei groans as he stands up from the spot that he has sat on for more than an hour. He stretched loudly to pop his stiff back and looks at the sun. The flaming ball was barely up to noon hours. It really is hard to believe that they have been here for hours, especially since they were all at the ramen shop just that morning. Earlier that day, YAWNNNN, Issei noisily exhales as he slumps over the remains of his weekend homework. He glances at Naruto to see the blonde staring blankly at the game screen without really reading the text. Matsuri was absently standing next to Naruto with a dazed look as well, and Dirt was. Well, Dirt. The guy's blood is coffee, there's no doubt that he cannot get tired or even dazed. This shop gives off a lethargic atmosphere these days, doesn't it? Dirt comments as he makes the same assessment as Issei. The man puts down his newspaper and looks around the shop. It was empty, save for maybe 1 or 2 regulars that might come later for lunch. The shop is bound to have no more customers today. Sigh, can't help it. The shop sometimes hit a funk and the atmosphere roughens up because of it. It's part of business after all. Naruto shrugs as he turns off the game system he wasn't really playing and turns back to Dirt and Issei. Perhaps a change of atmosphere might help, Matsuri suggested as she went to make some tea for Naruto, Dirt and Issei. The 3 turned to her to have her add some details and she explains, we haven't gone out to do anything fun in the sun for a while now. At most, each of us stay out for an hour to do a task before cramming ourselves back into the shop. In fact, the last time I remember us doing anything outside was when we went to buy the second Love School Fest game. Therefore, I suggest that we do something fun this weekend to liven ourselves up. The 3 males in the room shivered in phantom pain as they remembered the train wreck of a game that was Love School Fest. It's fishing season and I know a good spot a little west of here, Naruto suggested as he remembered a certain forest in his memory. If he remembered correctly, there was multiple streams and lakes that could have made a good camping spot. What a coincidence, I happen to have the camping tent and fishing gears required for a weekend stay in the woods in my van. Dirt throws in as he supports the first idea to do something active. Playing games and fun, but being in the sun might not be so bad. Guess I'll call my parents to say I'm going to be out with you guys for a while. Issei gets up and pulls out his phone while walking to the entrance to get a better signal. He paused while dialing and turns back to the blonde. Hey Naruto, can I borrow some of your clothes? It'll be kinda inconvenient to go back to my place and get some. The blonde shrugs and asks Matsuri, who's already going upstairs, to pack a few extra pair of clothes for Issei. Would you need any extra sets as well, Dirt-san? Matsuri asks the middle-aged man. He shook his head and pulled a duffel bag filled with clothes and other necessities. The girl nodded and continued her trudged upwards to prepare for a small trip. It took 10 minutes total for Dirt to pull up the van, Matsuri to pack everything and Naruto to close down the shop for the weekend. Once everyone was comfortable and seated, Dirt turned on the van's engine and started nudging the gas pedal forward. In Dirt's van, oi, at least slow down, there's a curve coming. Issei held on for his dear life as the middle-aged madman drove a van far past its built-in limits. The manically grinning man stepped on the pedals of the van at seemingly random intervals for the car to gain even more speed before strongly twisting the wheel. The car drifted on the road and, for a moment, Issei leaned out the window due to the momentum and saw the railing scarce millimeters away from his door. He was slammed back into his seat as the car regains its course and continued accelerating on the mountain pass. That were full of turns. Ding! Someone stop this man already. Ahahaha, the fun is part of the journey, Issei-kun. Dirt laughs off Issei's plea for salvation and pressed the gas pedal even more. According to the GPS, The next curve is in 2 minutes at normal speed limits and roughly 30 seconds at his speed. Naruto-san, Matsuri-san, can you move to the left this time? We're about to make another turn. Naruto grimaced as he moves himself and by extension, Matsuri, who was sprawled out half-conscious on his lap. He barely made it too as Dirt pulled on the wheel the very instant his butt touched the leather seating. His left hand shot up to grab the handbar above the door's window while his right hand was used to hold on tightly to the slightly more unconscious than before Matsuri. He grunted at the sharp turn that should definitely not be possible with a van. Matsuri groaned a little and he patted her back to calm her nauseousness. Issei, who had a front row seat, made a sound that almost reminded the blonde of a dying toad. His face looks like one too. Ahahaha. See, isn't this fun? Dirt airily laughs as he took the time to accelerate the van some more on the temporarily straight path. Naruto popped a comical red vein and Issei spazzingly twitched. Like hell it is, really, I like it. Only you Kurama, only you. Naruto mutters lowly as he braces himself and Matsuri for the next turn that was coming up. Matsuri whimpers as she hopes that Kurama-san didn't somehow encourage Dirt to attempt any crazier road tricks than what he has already shown. Evening at camp. Slurp. This turned out pretty good for some impromptu ingredients. Naruto assesses his ramen bowl as he shovels the thing down his throat similarly to that of a starved whale. The stock made from the fresh fish definitely enriched the flavors. Matsuri confirms as she delicately sips the broth that was her handiwork. She had uneven feelings about not having the full arsenal of kitchen spices and utensils to use, but the soup that she's tasting is potentially better than even most of her better works. Does anyone want some coffee? Dirt offers up a freshly made pot of coffee. Naruto held out a cup and Matsuri declined politely. Issei rolled his eyes and muttered something about the weirdness of drinking cyano. Aren't we supposed to be camping in the middle of the woods? Why are we eating ramen? Issei finally throws in his voice of reason at the strange setting. Here they were, roughly 3 hours, Dirt's measurement, away from the nearest piece of civilization, surrounded by trees for an hour's worth of walking, having nothing to illuminate them but the stars and moon in the sky, and what were they doing? Eating ramen. Seriously, at least have the decency to make marshmallow s'mores and cracker or something. No wait, Naruto would probably attempt to turn the marshmallows into stock for his ramen. This might actually be the better route, however strange it is. In essence, ramen is the refinement of the raw materials of the earth. In order to embrace the true feeling of camping, one must also embrace his love for Mother Nature and henceforth, ramen. This is truly the only way for us campers to truly bring out the truest quality of this journey. Naruto sagely says while stroking his blonde Fu Manchu. Coffee is also an refinement of the earth. You should start embracing that as well, Issei-kun. Dirt wisely inputs while offering the pot of warm coffee once more. Tea is earthly as well. Matsuri, who didn't want to be left out of the conversation, inputs as well. The silver-haired girl refilled Issei's half-empty teacup and smiled when the brunette thanks her on pure instinct and well-worn manners. This ramen is pretty good. Yeah, nighttime inside the tent. Good night, Issei. Good night, Issei-kun. Good night, Issei-kun. I really don't want to ask, but what the hell are you guys doing? All eyes turns to Issei, who was curled up in his sleeping bed, as he asks the question. They all gave Issei a questioning stare as if to ask if it wasn't obvious enough. Issei answers with a deadpan stare. As you can see, we are obviously playing a game. Naruto answers with a raised eyebrow. Yes, I can clearly see that. However, what I'm referring to is, Issei twitched his hand to point at the device which his 3 tent mates are using to play their game. The huge-ass flat-screen plasma television. How am I supposed to sleep like this? I guess we could lower the brightness and resolutions. Matsuri inputs as she discovers her friend's dilemma. No, that's not it. I meant what the hell is a flat-screen television doing in the middle of the woods? How is it even functioning with no electrical supply? Actually, how did you even bring that thing without me noticing? Oh, so that's it. Well, Issei-kun, this is no normal everyday huge-ass flat-screen plasma television. This is special huge-ass flat-screen plasma television. Issei raised an eyebrow. Through the power of a whole lot of cash and even more whole lot of bullshit science, my company has completed the anti-energy powered technology. The first ever in the line of gadgets to be able to run on the power of not having any power. Don't ask how that works, I don't know either. Dirt proudly pats the television with pride. He then turns to Issei and says, and besides, you were the one that carried it here, Issei-kun. Issei stared at Dirt with a flat face and muttered, so that's why it was so heavy. Then he stared at Matsuri, and then Naruto. The brunette heaved a great sigh and crawled his sleeping bag over to the group. So what games are you playing? The second morning crash. Issei woke up with a jolt as a loud crash resounded in his surroundings. He took a moment to pull his mind from the barrier between awake and unconsciousness and looked around. The first thing he noticed was the demolished tent that he, Dirt, Naruto and Matsuri had slept in. He then noticed that he wasn't in said shredded tent. He then felt himself being shifted and looked down to see the ground. He looks to his side to see Matsuri holding one hand on his shoulder and another against a tree's trunk. It took him another moment to figure out that he was on a branch of a tree. Why? What happened? Wah, shish, lower your voice, Issei-kun. We can't afford to attract the enemy. The silverette holds one finger to her mouth and spoke in a hushed tone. What's happening? Finally getting some bearings, the brunette asks the girl in a hushed tone. Crash, we attracted a bear and some wild scavengers with the lingering smell of yesterday's meal. The girl says as she immediately turns her head to another crashing sound from nearby. Issei turned his head towards the sound as well and saw a huge white tiger slam into a tree and make a giant gash with its claws. A figure darted out from underneath the tiger's claw, and when it took Issei a scant second to recognize the figure as Dirt. Wait, I thought you said a bear. Why's there a tiger? He silently exclaims to the girl while watching his friend dodge under another trounce from the white beast, all while still sipping from his coffee cup. Naruto-sama went to distract the bear but somehow led it to a tiger's den. A few incidents followed and Dirt is now distracting the tiger while Naruto-sama finishes off the bear. Matsuri reports while pulling out a bamboo stick and some blow darts and looks at the tools regretfully. He also told me to support Dirt-san, but my skills with these weapons have yet to be refined in training with Naruto-sama. No, I don't think you need to refine anything like that. Issei seriously waves his hands in a no gesture while giving the girl a deadpan for even taking the blonde's insane idea of training into consideration. Ah! Dirt's voice echoed under the pair and they turned their attention to below the tree. They saw Dirt widened his eyes in surprise when he looked up and saw the two and widened some more when he noticed that the tiger saw the two. The man stood there in silence, probably to think of an effective plan to lure the tiger's attention away from the two above and back towards him, as the tiger pounced. He squared his shoulder and bent his knees, as if getting ready to charge, when an orange and yellow blur appeared from the foliage nearby and intercepted the tiger's attack feet to face. Dynamic entry. Bam! Knocking the tiger completely off of its course, the blonde used his rebounding momentum to flip 4 times in the air before landing right next to Dirt. Get ready to bolt to the forest on my mark. The blonde with the shredded orange t-shirt, and surprisingly no injuries, simply said as he gave Dirt, Matsuri and Issei a quick once-over. Now. As if by command, a bear barreled through the same foliage that Naruto jumped out of and crashed into the tiger. The white beast gathered enough sense after Naruto's attack to retaliate against the bear and a fight between forest predators broke loose. Dirt immediately circled the tree and ran straight into the woods as Naruto instructed. Matsuri fireman carried Issei and jumped down the tree branch. Issei grunted as he quickly separated from Matsuri and bolted off after Dirt with the silverette besides him. In the woods. Huff, huff, huff. I think we're safe now. After God knows how long minutes of running, Dirt declared the OK mark while leaning against a random tree. Matsuri huffed a sigh of relief and sat against a tree to gather her breath. Issei all but fell on his butt as he caught on with his much-needed oxygen supply. Once the brunette managed a safe enough level, he noticed something grave. Hey, where's Naruto? Dirt's face became noticeably grim as he turns towards the direction where they came from. Naruto-san volunteered himself to retrieve an important object of ours. Issei tried to make sense of the statement. He didn't remember anything that important being with them in the tent. But then again, he didn't pay much attention to the camp. The brunette looks back at Naruto's direction and scrunched up his brows in worry. Don't worry, Issei-kun. Naruto-sama said that he'll meet up with us at the van. Matsuri pats his shoulder. When'd he tell you that? Issei looks at the silver-haired girl with a questioning look. You didn't notice his eyes when he looked at us? Matsuri looks back at the boy with a questioning look of her own. I must have missed the class that taught us that. Issei rolled his eyes and looked back at Dirt. The middle-aged man was looking at a compass and a protractor in his hand. He took a sip of his coffee and puts the tools back into his pocket. Alright, guess we'll have to end our trip early and go back. If I calculated this correctly, the van is this way. Dirt begins walking in a random direction with a resolute face. Come, Issei-kun. Matsuri pats his shoulder once more and followed after Dirt. Issei looks at Naruto's direction once more and wished the blonde good luck and safety. The van, thanks to Dirt's expert navigation skills, the group made it back to a familiar dirt path that leads to where the middle-aged man had parked his car. It took another half hour before they actually made it to the vehicle, but they still made it. The sun was high up in the sky, so it must be around afternoon. Issei was the first to spot the white van and practically ran to it in joy. No more walking, huzzah. When the group got near the van, they all noticed a mop of blonde hair. Naruto stood casually leaning his back against the van with his eyes closed. He twitched when he heard them coming and gave a lazy smile when they were all in sight. Matsuri smiled back and walked to stand beside him. Dirt smirked and sipped his coffee. Issei grinned as he saw that the blonde's condition was no worse for wear. So did you get it? Dirt asks as he inserts the car keys into the keyhole to unlock the van's door. Of course. Naruto turned his lazy smile into a full-grown grin and reached into his t-shirt pocket. "What was it that you were risking your life to get?" Issei asks so that he can finally cool down his curiosity for what it is that the blonde values so much. He spent a good portion of the walk back worrying about the blonde after all. It's only natural to be curious about the object of the worries. It can only be this, of course. We did spend a good portion of the night playing it. Naruto proudly pulls out a completely unscratched game disc that they played yesterday. Issei's eyebrow twitched and the brunette screamed. "Give me back my worry, damn it." Slam. The door to Naruto's ramen shop was forcibly pushed open with a loud slamming sound. Naruto and Dirt looked up from the latest dating sim that they're trying their hands on and looked at the culprit of the loud distraction. Matsuri sticks her head out of the kitchen's interior in order to see who had caused the loud noise. It didn't take them by surprise to see that the perpetrator was no one other than the missing member of their group, Issei Hyodo. They were, however, surprised at the sight of the brunette leaning heavily against the door and panting. His clothes were wrinkled and he was lightly perspiring. If one had to guess, he was probably running straight to the shop as soon as school was out. The team took in 2 deep breaths and held up a letter that was crumpled within his hands. "Guess what? The midterm score came back and I don't have to take a retest." The brunette smiles in a semi-hysterical manner as he straightens up from catching his breath. He smoothens the wrinkles on his clothes and practically skips to the table where Naruto and Dirt sat. "So what's the grade?" Naruto quickly saves the dating sim that he and Dirt was playing to pay full attention to his friend. Dirt sipped his coffee in interest. How'd he even show emotion through sipping coffee? "Nah, not yet. I wanted to open it up along with you guys. Cause, you practically crammed the answers down my throat." Issei sits down at the regular table and thanks Matsuri for giving him a cup of tea at the same moment. The silver-haired girl nodded and went to sit by Naruto's side. "And you're welcome for that," Dirt curtly replies. "Yeah, thanks. I appreciated the lack of sleep and the insane amount of coffee you directly injected into me through intravenous therapy." Issei rolled his eyes and tears opened the letter. He pulled out 3 thick sheets of copy paper and spread it out onto the table for everyone to read. The first was a letter that states the purpose and other technical stuff of the report card to begin with. Nobody minded the fact that Naruto crumbled it up and threw it away 3 seconds after reading it. The second was a numerical representation of the grades of each tests in color with each subject's letter. Japanese, 96, English, 98, Social Studies, 94. Mathematics, 100, Science, 98, total grade, 486. Rank, 3rd of class, special notes. Due to his failing in normal studies, it is more than surprising to see Issei-kun do so well on his tests. This concludes that under the deep exterior of a hooligan lies a studious young man. It is suggested that Mr. and Mrs. Hyodo attempt to draw out the inner student to appear in a more everyday life manner as opposed to urgent problems such as term tests. Issei stared at the score with wide eyes of disbelief. Naruto gave a "ha" at the special notes the facility decided to give to Issei while thinking that they couldn't be any more wrong. Dirt whistles lowly at the ranking while sipping his coffee, and Matsuri did some mental recollection of the problems that Issei might have missed during the test date so that she could tutor it to him next time. "How is it possible that I've got such a high grade?" Issei finally found his voice after a moment of silence that followed each grade looker's reaction. He tried to remember the hazy memories that were associated with the test. Though he did accomplish to most of the questions given, there were a few that he was sketchy on but still decided to aim. Matsuri only actively went out of her encouragement zone to discreetly help him cheat when he's having too much of a hard time trying to solve a problem. Which was only 3 times, if he remembered correctly. High 80s were what he was expecting, at most. It would be surprising if you didn't get such high scores. After all, Matsuri dedicated quite a bit of time for hacking and organizing in order to gather up the study materials you had to go through. Naruto looks at the grades and scowls at the fact that Issei didn't make rank 1 on this attempt. He made a mental note: make the brunette study more efficiently for the next test that's coming in a month or so, the finals. Still, for Issei-kun to actually remember his crammed up study materials, maybe the special notes is onto something. Dirt smiles as he hints the blonde to help Issei bring out his inner student. Issei caught onto the hint and glares at Dirt, as if to tell him to shut up before the blonde gets any idea. "Anyways, what's this 3rd letter?" Matsuri held up the 3rd piece of paper on the table. It was a letter that was addressed to Issei. Matsuri looked in Issei's direction and the brunette waved his hand to silently allow the girl to read the letter aloud. Letter. Dear Hyodo Issei, congratulations on getting 3rd rank in your class. It is a pleasant surprise to see that a student who's worried as so much do so well on his test. Especially when said student have tied up to the measures of 2 other student council members whom have received our tutoring. It gives us great pleasure to applaud your efforts to show your academic excellence and show us why you belong to Kuo Academy. On the basis of your excellent test grades, the Student Council would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to become a member of Kuo Academy's Student Council. Here, we will be able to help you in any academic endeavors as well as curbing your capricious habits to make you into a model student. We hope that you'll consider this opportunity. Sincerely, Student Council President Suna Shidori. Issei was once again slack-jawing himself by the time Matsuri finished reading the letter. He was being invited to join the student council. He was being invited by cool and charismatic president of Kuo Academy to join the student council. Him? To gets himself sent to after-school detention every other day of the week for peeking was being cordially invited to the student council? So you're thinking of joining Issei-kun? Dirt asks as Issei adopted a semi-serious thinking face. I don't know. Maybe. Issei hesitantly answers the middle-aged man's question. They're only inviting me because I made a good grade on the midterms and gave them the impression that I'm a capable, if lazy, student deep inside. If I join them, I might become a more serious student and it might do me some good. Though, I'm hesitating because feel like I might screw something up. What do you guys think? Dirt, Naruto and Matsuri then adopted a semi-serious thinking face as well while imagining what would happen if Issei became a part of the student council. Naruto even pulled out a few pieces of paper to draw it out. The female council members would probably quit on the first day. Letters requesting ridiculous things such as a change in dress code to bunny girl outfits for the female side would increase exponentially. The school buildings being remodeled so that anything female related will have two-sided see-through glass installed to every wall. The hedges and tree grooming will all be trimmed so that the plants will all have an Oppai-ish shape. The name Kuo Academy will be changed to Oppai Academy and all male students will be indefinitely suspended from the school grounds so that Issei can be the only male in the school full of female members ONL. Oi! Stop your imagination right there. The first two were possibilities that can happen but everything else is not. Issei cuts into the image that Naruto's drawing for Dirt and Matsuri. He understands that he might be a bit of a deviant but to have such an descriptive image drawn of him like that. He's not that perverted, right? Right? I don't know Issei-kun. I can actually see this happening. Dirt rubs his chin while looking at a hand-drawn picture of a construction team breaking down the female bathroom walls and replacing it with glass panels. There was a flag with Issei's name waving around in the background. Dirt. I'm sorry Issei-kun but I cannot see anything else other than this happening if you were to hold a position of power. Matsuri flips to a page that shows Issei laughing manically on a throne over a group of teenage girls wearing bunny uniform. Matsuri, give it up and lose all hopes of joining Issei. An Oppai lover like you have no place in an organization as prestigious as the student council. It'll only end up destroying civilization. Naruto pats his brunette friend on the shoulder. Issei turned around to see Naruto holding up 4 pages of connected pictures showing a world where everything was in ruins and the only survivor was Issei with nothing but a pair of striped panties in his hands. Guh, that's too much, damn it. I'm not that much of an open pervert. Issei broke down immediately as Naruto deals the last blow. Pervert or not, it still hurts to be accused of being one in front of everybody. It's more of a painful blow when everybody wholly agrees with it. With the last straw smashed to fine powdered smithereens, Issei ran out of the ramen shop in tears while Naruto and Dirt followed him out the door yelling, "Wait up Oppai. It was a joke," and, "Oppai-kun. We were just kidding." One could literally hear the palpable enjoyment coming from their voice as Issei only ran faster. It was a long time since the fateful night when he had awoken in an unfamiliar forest. He was now sitting at the edge of a cliff, watching the beautiful scene of a luscious green forest and a roaring waterfall. It reminded him of his precious home. And it reminded him of his guilt. At first, he would think of the beautiful village hidden in the leaves every day and every night, in every moment of his conscious thoughts. Whether he was focusing on information gathering about the new world with his clones or making a fake, real identity, his first and foremost thought would always be about his friends and the hidden village they reside in. How were they faring with the reconstruction of their home? Are they still at peace and in alliance with the other villages? How were his friends and allies doing? How were Kakashi-sensei and Sakura-chan coping with the after effects of war? Did Sasuke ever return to the village? Was Sasuke even alive? The blonde's last moment with the bastard was when they were free falling through the air. The blonde fell through the accursed rabbit princess's tunnel and landed on the grounds of the forest with no momentum but Sasuke didn't. Was the raven-haired teen okay? Was Hinata okay? Was Fuzzy Brow Sensei okay? His 6-path Sage Mode's Yang healing technique was rough patchwork at most. Was Tuchi Inuyame okay? Did they evacuate in time with the other civilians? Was Ichiraku's ramen shop rebuilt by now? It was a number of small and disjointed thoughts but he had thought of them every day and every night. Soon though, this changed. Every day became every other day and every night became every other night. Then every other day and every other night became every other week, then months, and now, a year. He had noticed this too late. He feared that he has lost the love he held for the village, however small the loss was. The village became a second priority on his mental list, then a third, then a fourth, and then near the bottom. The village and the leaves became a distant memory since he knew he couldn't return. It stopped being the one most important thing to the blonde. It disappeared from his mind like a fog that has been lifted by the sun that was the cause of his guilt. He has outgrown his most beloved home. He has moved on from his one home. To him, it has become a thing of the past. His home was gone, and he was stuck here. The blonde made a decision. The week after that decision, Uzumaki's ramen shop opened. The blonde made a new home for himself and found new friends. The Leaf's Naruto is gone, only a memory that he'll hold to his dying breath. But now, all that is left is this Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki of Earth. And he is sure to protect the home that he's built here and the friends that he's made, just like he did with his last. This is his will of fire. Class, please turn to page 53. Matsuda-kun, can you read the third paragraph for me? Dirt finishes writing a sentence in English on the chalkboard and calls out a random name from the attendance roster. Matsuda dutifully reads the paragraph in amazingly butchered English as Dirt walks up and down the rows trying to imitate what a normal teacher would do. Issei stares out the window and sighs for not the last time of this day. The brunette looks back to his textbook to allocate where his bald friend is reading in the text and lets his mind wanders off some more. First period, it was his normal teacher teaching social studies. Second period, it was an older-looking Matsuri with light makeup and an extra batch of brunettes to teach science. Now it was third period and Dirt decides to jump in to teach English. If this is continued, then that blonde will be next to teach math. He sighed again as he figured that Naruto's probably wandering around the school somewhere, no doubt causing some sort of ridiculous trouble aimed at him. The brunette briefly sighs aloud under his breath and read the text that Dirt has assigned to him in the half-baked English skills that the man had once drilled him in. Not for the first time in a long while, the brunette thinks to himself. Seriously, what's wrong with this school's staff management system? Does this school hire anyone who signs up for an attempt at the teacher's job? The air within the student council office was suffocating. Everyone within the room has stopped moving not too long ago. They were too fearful to even twitch. There were only two people who had the freedom to move. The first was a blonde as he leaned back into his seat while he glares at the girl before him. The second was the girl as she finishes signing a document on her desk. The girl sighs "Aow" for the man glaring at her to hear. She slowly puts down her pen and raises her head to look at the threatening person sitting in front of her. "Is there anything I can help you with? Stay away from Hyodo Issei." The statement made Sona raised an eyebrow fractionally. The name Hyodo Issei rang a bell. The boy is a first year at Kuo Academy who somehow got in by the bare minimum grade for the registration exam. He is a potential sacred gear holder that she and Rias had accidentally found not so long ago at the Sano festival. He is a hoodlum who likes causing perverse troubles but apparently have a high level of intellect, if his midterms grade were anything to go by. He is, by all means, only a little above a regular teenage boy with no background involving the supernatural world besides the gear in his body. But apparently the last piece of information is wrong. Sona Citri inwardly scowl as she tries to identify the being before her. The blonde was too holy to be a devil yet too unholy to be an angel or even their fallen counterparts, the fallen angels. The blonde's magic system were too non-volatile to be that of a yukai's yet far too developed to be a human's or even a mage. The magic system is too strong, too powerful for her to measure with just her sixth sense alone. Just trying to discern his status, whether it be holy or unholy, already gives her a headache far worse than any she's experienced since coming to this school. Who is this blonde? What is this blonde? I have trouble discerning what your intentions are. Leaving the blonde's identity aside, she continues scoping out for his intent and purpose of being here. The man literally showed up out of thin air and oppressed everyone in the room with sheer malice alone. If he is here about Hyodo Issei, then that means he has found out about the letter sent to him. Is this man also someone who is after the power of the sacred gear? You are perfectly aware of what I'm talking about, non-human, he hissed out the last syllables. One of his cold blue eyes changed into a bloody crimson hue with a pitch-black slit as its pupil. Sona could visibly see the tension increasing as her peerage failed to contain their flinches and shivers, but she couldn't feel anything, most likely the blonde's attempt to allow her to at least be able to talk. We both know you are not interested in him, but what's inside of him? I warn you, stay away. What power do you have to be ordering me? She is perfectly aware of the blonde's power and his claim on the boy, Hyodo Issei, but she still must ascertain who this blonde is and whom he works for. For all she knows, this person might be a devil, an angel. She highly doubted this, due to his overwhelming hostility and killing intent. A fallen angel, a yukai or even a god. An unknown enemy in her. And technically Rias' territory is bad. An unknown enemy that her information source have no records of is even worse. The blonde growled and for a moment, she felt the pressure he exerted over everyone else in the room. True, it was extremely overbearing and deeply menacing, but there was something else in it. A trace of terrible malice that neither shows in angels, fallen angels or devil. A trace of pent-up madness that shows in the yukai race. Something clicked within her mind. Ria's warning about the Yukai Association making a base in Tokyo. In other words, Hyodo Issei is already claimed by the yukais. I understand, I will not make any attempt to entangle Hyodo Issei within the supernatural world. Is that satisfactory? She inwardly sighs when the blonde grunted his approval and disappeared the same way he appeared, out of thin air. There was no teleportation circle or even a trace of magic being used, but the blonde's presence completely disappeared from everyone in the room's senses. She rubbed her temples as she asked her slightly disoriented vice president and queen, Tsubaki, to get her childhood friend, Rias. It would not do well for the redhead to draw the aggravation of the neutral Yukai Association into the three factions that are already feral for each other's blood. Do you think that will be enough, Kuruma? I doubt it. Isn't that why you gave the perverse brat a Gudama? For protection? Somehow, I fear that isn't enough. You can't keep watch on him, for every moment of the day. This is all you can do. Then that means I still haven't done enough to protect my friend. Stop worrying, brat. Isn't it your motto? To deal with the problems, as they come? Yeah, I guess I'm worrying for nothing, thanks Kurama. Z's. He, deal with it as they come, huh? Naruto puts on a rueful smile. Guess I really shouldn't bother worrying. Now then, I think lunch is about to start soon, I better find a good spot to eat. One random night, are you sure we should be doing this? Issei asks for the xth time that day as he looks out from behind a dead light pole that he's hiding under. The question is, why haven't we done this earlier? Naruto harshly whispers back as he huddles up against the walls of an alleyway near Issei's light pole. It really didn't work out for him as his ninja garb, his bright neon orange jumpsuit. Naruto-sama, the coast is clear. I managed to infiltrate this block's camera systems and am now replaying the scenes from 10 minutes back. You are now free of all electronic surveillance. Matsuri's slightly static voice spoke through the blonde's and brunette's earpiece. The girl herself was dressed in her normal wear back in the Uzumaki's ramen shack with a laptop running random codes on the screen and a headset on her head. Good job, Matsuri. Issei, let's go. Naruto jumps out of the alleyway and immediately moves towards the place of target. He weaves himself in and out of the lights and shadows and kept his body moving at a low angle, becoming nothing more than a blur, a really bright orange blur, but a blur nevertheless. Issei gives his blonde friend a deadpanned look and walked after him, abandoning all pretense of trying to hide himself in the darkness of the night. When he finally made it to where his friend stopped it, he sees the blonde intensely studying an electronic lock. That looks hard to crack. Is Matsuri going to put her hand on that too? No, this is a model that I'm familiar with. I know exactly how to crack it open. The blonde mutters aloud to Issei before getting on his knees and lugging off his neon orange backpack. He rummages through the weighty pack before pulling out a mallet. Wait. Stop. Issei jumps forward and holds Naruto's arms back as the blonde made the motion to swing the chunk of metal on a stick towards the electronic lock. Once he's ascertained that Naruto was not going to attempt to scrap the piece of technology, he immediately scolds the blonde in a hushed tone. What the hell are you thinking? Do you want to get us arrested? No, wait, this whole plan is going to get us arrested to begin with, but do you want to add more to our already growing list of criminal charges? Naruto tilts his head at Issei's action before looking down at the mallet and widened his eyes in understanding. You misunderstood, Issei. I wasn't planning on breaking in that way. Here, look. He slowly puts one of the mallet's faces near the lock again and watched as the tool Dirt gave them earlier for their mission worked its charm. Wah! Issei watched in awe as the unassuming mallet within his blonde friend's hand started humming and clicking mechanically. The side that was facing the lock opened up and began shooting some sort of blue light laser for a few seconds. It stopped when a beep resounded from somewhere inside the machine. Something inside the lock beeped as well and a click could be heard immediately afterwards. Naruto reaches his hand at the handle of the door and gently twisted it to test if the mallet did its job. Seeing no problems occurring, Naruto nodded to Issei before swiftly opening the door and rush inwards. Issei owes the blonde while silently whispering, "Sorry for the intrusion." It's not exactly the right thing to say at this moment, but it's the feelings that counts after all. The place that the pair is raiding has 8 newly polished tables within it, neatly organized for efficient traveling, and a marble counter near the left middle area. Each table has an open box on it that holds chopsticks and spoons. There were posters of food being displayed in a beautiful manner and red price tags on them littered all over the walls. The air smells like Naruto's breath after lunch break. Yup, it's just as Matsuri briefed to him. They really are raiding a fellow ramen shop. Reasons: Naruto's claim in that this newly opened shop has been stealing his hard-earned customers through cheap tactics and he's here to put a stop to it. Issei claims that this whole pursuit is complete bullshit, but further discussions were denied by President Dirt. Via age seniority, another thing that Issei called bullshit on, until the next meeting, which is scheduled for somewhen next year on the 13th of Never. Issei followed the blonde as he sneaks behind the counter and walks into the kitchen area. From his own experience of raiding Naruto's kitchen, he would deem that the place is around the same size, if not slightly bigger. He spotted Naruto not so cautiously tossing aside some pots, pans, utensils and kitchenware in order to look through every drawer and cabinets he sees. Aha! I have found the book that holds their secrets. Issei, let us be gone before they realize our presence here. Naruto opens the kitchen window and jumps out of it, leaving a complete mess of what was once a respectable kitchen. Seeing as he already made enough of a mess today just by following Naruto, the brunette felt that another deed undone wouldn't really tip his karma scale. Issei immediately follows Naruto out of the window not a second later. In Naruto's and Matsuri's room. So this is the book that holds all their secrets. Naruto says as he roughly flops down a nondescript brown journal on the only low-lying table in the room. It looks more like an ordinary accounting booklet to me. Issei, who's sitting across from Naruto, skims through the book for anything important looking and only found a list of ramen ingredients and their prices. Judging from Naruto's intelligence, insanity level however, Issei wouldn't put it past the blonde to actually be able to make some sense out of this. Ah, that's where you're right and oh so wrong Issei. Nothing is ordinary if you look underneath the underneath. Naruto folded one arm underneath his chest while having the other one nudge up the glasses on his nose, when he put that on, so that the light shines off of them and hides his eyes. Unless this booklet turns into porn mag starring Kiko Kagatawa, I'm not willing to go through the trouble of trying to understand any of your cryptic mumbo-jumbo. Ah, what Naruto-sama is trying to say is that there is always a deeper meaning to everything, even when it is something as ordinary as this notebook. If we are to trace the ingredients that are used to entice our customers away, we might be able to find a way to bring them back. I think. Matsuri sets down 3 cups of tea in front of everyone in the room, Dirt having left earlier due to some important work and sat next to Naruto. That's exactly right Matsuri. Now then, without further ado, Issei, read off the list. The blonde pats Matsuri's head and exasperatingly points at Issei with the command. Yeah, let's just get this over with. Let's see now. Issei rolls his eyes and turned to the first page so that he could read it aloud. February 23rd, supplies order delivered, 4 large bags of flour, 50 pounds of organic beef, pork and poultry, 4 boxes of freshly packaged eggs, 2 fresh immigrant slaves, 10 pounds of salt, pepper and assorted spices, 10 packaged boxes of Mama Yum Yum special broth, 15 pounds of seaweed, 20 pounds of fish, shrimp, scallops and assorted seafood, 4 pounds of love, 10 pounds of beans and corns, 30 sticks of fresh butter and 3 boxes of menma. Matsuri, can you reread this list again to see if I'm reading this right? I'm sure that the lack of sleep on a school night is getting to me. Issei pushes the journal to Matsuri who gingerly takes it up and reads it twice more, once in her head and once aloud. The list did not change. The questionable items were still there. Before anyone could have said anything, Matsuri took the initiative and flipped the page and reads the next entry. It is roughly the same as the first page with a few numerical changes for the shipping quantity and prices. The Silverette continues to clearly read out the next page with furrowed eyebrows. She then turns the page once more, this time not even pausing, to read again, and again, and again, and again till the journal had no more entries. Each memo reviews another little stain in the shop's history. Human trafficking, illegal organ dealing, drug trading, black market auctioning, weapon transaction and many other not-so-hidden secrets. As the girl continued to read, Issei grew paler and paler as the fact that this is clearly not a badly made joke starts clicking in. Once the silver-haired girl stopped talking, he glances sideways at Naruto to see the blonde wearing a deadly serious expression. The blonde was silent for a moment before standing up and walks to his closet. From it, he pulls out a big sports bag with heavy items already inside. He also takes out a small box and pulls a pin out from it. He carefully puts on the pin and lugs the heavy bag on his shoulder while pulling out his phone and dials a number. Matsuri, get a guest futon for Issei and get some sleep. I'll be back later. As the blonde closes the door, Issei caught sight of the pin or rather, the badge. It was an intricately designed badge with the letters NPA underneath it. The symbol for the National Police Agency of Japan. Issei was completely silenced at discovering that fact, his brain overloaded with too many questions. Both he and Matsuri sat there for a small while before the girl stood up as well and walks towards the only door in the room. Matsuri, Issei manages to ask as he stares at her while she passes him and reaches for the handle. Where are you going? I'm following Naruto-sama. You've heard the entries too, haven't you, Issei-kun? It had an extensive list of weapons in it. I at least want to make sure that Naruto-sama will be fine with my own eyes rather than over a phone. It's dangerous. Issei whispers as an image of his blonde friend being fatally injured and hospitalized flashes through his mind. I know. That's exactly why I wish to see Naruto-sama safe and sound with my own eyes rather than waiting in slow, mind-numbing patience. With her piece said, she opens the door and walks out. Before the door could have completely closed, Issei stood up and pushed it aside once more. He twisted the lower handle's lock and closes the door, hoping that the upper lock wouldn't be needed. He turns from the door and made it to the stairs to find Matsuri standing at the bottom, waiting for him. The brunette smiles briefly at how she seems to knows him so well and ran downstairs to follow after Naruto. The other ramen shop Issei looks out from behind the walls of where Naruto had hidden earlier. Matsuri is hiding behind the light pole that he had took up before. The ramen shop that he and Naruto had invaded earlier is completely empty of all signs of trouble. The door is closed, the lights are out, and even the electric lock looks like it is functioning as it should be. It doesn't seem like Naruto's here yet. The brunette whispers out to the girl. He turns around and sees that she's quickly tapping away at something on a black electronic pad. He saw numbers and random letters before the screen blacks out and a video started playing. The video shows 5 blurry shapes walk into the ramen shop. The first one had a mop of bloniously Naruto, but Issei couldn't make out who the others are. He guessed that they are the ones that Naruto called to help him. No, Naruto-sama went in earlier with his helpers, but no signs of any activity is recorded after this. Matsuri furrows her eyebrow in worry and exited the video screen to type up for anything that could tell them more. Should we go in? Issei asks as he sees his silver-haired friend getting no results for her efforts, judging from her unchanging frown. That could possibly be the only way. Matsuri cheats and puts the tablet back in her handbag. She adamantly walks up to the ramen shop and Issei quickly follows the strangely passive-aggressive girl. Once they got to the door, Issei decided that he should be the one to go first, and the brown-haired boy reached for the handle. It was unlocked, which wasn't really that strange since Naruto came in earlier. He carefully pushes the door open and jumps back when it pulls itself forward, without his help. He lets go of the handle to pull back when he feels a strong grip on his shoulder. It was a grip that he was well acquainted with. It was Matsuri's signature. Anything for Naruto-sama insert smile asterisk. Grip. Before he could turn around, the silver-haired girl pushes him forward and straight through the open door. Issei yelps as he feels himself getting grabbed from the shirt collar and roughly dragged into the darkness involuntarily. He was roughly spun around and then pushed on his butt into a wooden chair by the mysterious hand. The brunette instinctively tries to get up, but he was then pushed once more backwards on the chair. The chair is stopped a moment later, and before Issei even squeaked at the impact, he was roughly blindfolded. It was only around now that he starts hyperventilating. His brain is completely overloaded with what's happening so far, and he has no way of processing any of what's happening to him, besides the fact that he's being manhandled. From the edge of his blindfold, he could see darkness taking on a brighter tone and figures that the light must have been turned on. A few shuffling noises could be heard around him, and he hears someone taking a decisive step behind his back, which is glued to the chair. He feels a pair of hands undo the knot for his blindfold. As he feels the blindfold lower from his eyes, he squints in. Bang! PFFTHRUUU, bang, 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 happy birthday Issei. Jumps back in surprise once more as a cacophony of noises exploded around him. He blinks and sees the ramen shop is now decorated everywhere. The door has a banner that says, "Happy late birthday." The tables stacked together into a bigger table with wrapped boxes and a birthday cake in the middle. There were birthday balloons and confetti floating around everywhere. Strangely enough, there was also a realistic statue of a napping nine-tailed fox in the corner of the room with a party hat strapped on its head. Issei blinks again and looks at the faces of the people in the room. The first one he saw was Naruto as the blonde smiled goofily and popped another party popper in his face. He sees Dirt sitting at the table sipping coffee and blowing on a party horn. He sees his parents sitting next to the middle-aged man while smiling almost as widely as Naruto was. His mother snapped a picture with the camera in her hand. Matsuda and Motohama standing off to the side of the counter and giving him a mischievous grin. He turns around to see the person holding his shoulder and sees Matsuri smiling down at him almost apologetically. Wah? He blinks again, and after a moment, another one before something clicks in his head. It was a surprise party for someone's birthday. It was his birthday today. This is a surprise party for his birthday, dang. This is too much, damn it. Issei sheds his tears and cries aloud. Whether it was out of anger or happiness, even he did not know. Either way, he refused to talk again for 10 minutes until Dirt gave him his present as an appeasement offering. Naruto's birthday ramen cake tasted surprisingly good, not that he told the blonde. He was still mad at the damned whiskered teen for giving him an almost heart attack. Really, to celebrate his birthday that passed months ago, what was the blonde thinking? An idiot number 1. Welcome back to another belated and marshmallowful chapter of the strange relationship between Oppai Dragon and Ramen Chef. Idiot number 2. To start this off, number 3. What do we have today for our amazingly beloved fans whom are willing to scourge their eyes reading this crap? Idiot number 3. More news in euphemism about us being lazy bastards. Idiot number 1. Stand back bros, I got this. Ahem, we are currently working very hard on making the next chapter of this fanfiction. Though it might be slowed due to RL, we really do intend to give this our fullest undivided attention. A butterfly. Idiot number 2. Alright, cut. Perfect. Now insert some comments so that we can spike up our word count. Number 3. Idiot number 3. We're a bunch of idiots. Idiot number 1. Yes, you guys are. Idiot number 2 and number 3. Oi, idiot number 1. No, seriously, is there no news this time? I'm pretty sure we're pissing someone, if not everyone, off for wasting their time as they read this crap. Idiot number 2. Oh, hey. I got one. Awesome readers out there, can anyone suggest things that normal high schoolers do these days? We're literally getting our ideas from an Ouija board and a decaying rat's skull. Or a hamster's skull, we're not exactly sure on the details. While it works amazingly well, the satanic persuasions are starting to get to us. Wait a minute, we're writing a fanfic about Satanism already. Idiot number 3. We would appreciate any ideas and suggestions. Idiot number 1. And seriously, we're sorry for being so late. You'd expect 3 people working on this to be faster, but nope. Idiot 1, 2 and 3. Thanks for reading. Favorites, flame and review. We accept it all. My stomach growls to show its hunger just as my latest client happily closes his door. I rub my stomach as a wave of hunger spreads through my body and was about to summon a teleportation circle to bring me back to the clubroom when I remember that there is no more snacks waiting for me there. With that thought in mind, I descend the flight of stairs and walk to the market area that is nearby. I probably could have waited until after I made the report to my king that I have finished my mission, but the red-haired devil was never one to hold on to strict rules. A little violation now wouldn't cause me much trouble. Like that, I wander through the marketplace, looking around for a convenience store of sorts to buy some snacks from, or maybe a shop that might have something appetizing to eat. I have never been in this particular part of town before since my apartment is on the other side of Kuo Academy's middle school division. My stomach growls once more and I decide that I must hurry. I tilt my head slightly higher than normal to take small sniffs of the air. I facilitated any strong smells from the weaker ones as well as differentiate any good smell from the bad ones. After a moment, my eyes widen a bit as I caught onto a most delectable scent. It is spicy yet mild, strong yet subtle, salty yet sweet, and so much more. As I wander towards the smell after locking onto the scent, it leads me to what looks like a run-of-the-mill ramen shop. The shop has nothing special looking about itself for such a wonderful smelling concoction to resides within, but I trust my nose and my nose tells me to go in. I reach for the door and walk into the ramen shop, Uzumaki Ramen. The inside of the shop is as generic as the outside. There are tables lined up efficiently to make enough room for the customers and anyone walking in between. There is a counter in the right-hand side that leads to some stairs and the kitchen area. There is a potted plant somehow thriving in the corner with no sunlight reaching it. Overall, everything about this place is about as generic as it can get. Well, except for a certain table near the end of the shop. The table is close to the only television in the room, a surprisingly big one at that, and it was moved out of symmetry with all the other tables. Residing in it is a strange group of people. The first and most noticeable is an old teen with golden hair. He has on an apron and a rolled-up sleeve shirt. In his hands is a game remote and on his face was a scowl aimed at the television. Next to him is the second most noticeable person. A girl that looks to be in her late teens as well with flowing silver hair. The girl has on the same apron as the golden-haired boy and a serene smile on her face as she sips her tea. To the girl's right is yet another teen, though this one looks a bit younger. Perhaps the same age as the knight of my group. The brunette boy has on the same uniform as well. What a coincidence. The younger teen is scratching his head with a pencil as he works on a stack of paper on his side of the desk while sometimes glancing at the blonde teen and saying some things before returning to work. Did the high school division of Kuo Academy give out that much homework? I do not remember the knight doing so much paperwork. On the opposite side of the brunette teen is a middle-aged man reading a newspaper, though his presence seems to be strange. He is human, but at the same time, he seems like a human replicating a human. The man smells like a human, looks like a human, and seems to be, in all sense of the word, human. Yet the word human does not fit him. I blink as the man slowly turns towards me and any further thought leaves my mind. I gently close the door only for the bell on top to jingle and get the table's occupants to notice me. The golden-haired teen stands up and gently pushes the silver-haired girl down with a smile as she too made to stand up. He walks towards the door with a professional smile and ushers me to a seat before asking me for my orders. I look at him for a stretched moment while trying to decide what flavor the delicious smell could be when something in the teen's eyes flashes and he grins, making some extremely light marks on his cheek become more apparent. He tells me that he knows exactly what I would like and went to the kitchen before I could get a chance to say anything. As I waited, I take a look at the table again to see that everyone returned to doing what they were doing before the blonde got up. Though, the face the silver-haired girl is making as she tries the game is quite amusing. 5 minutes later, the blonde returns with a steaming bowl of ramen and a glass of water. I gulp loudly as the teen sets down the bowl and immediately digs in as his hand leaves. The ramen is beyond any doubt of the word, delicious. Everything about it is perfect because it literally has everything that could make it perfect. The broth, the condiments, the very noodles itself, all of it is without doubt delicious. By the time I become aware of myself again, the bowl laid empty before me and the blonde was coming back with another bowl. One somehow managed to thank the blonde in between bites. Probably. After that bowl is demolished, one jump onto another. And then another. It is by the end of the 6th bowl that one had to consciously stop myself from eating more. Because it is so perfect. The ramen is probably pricey and I only have so much pocket money. Taking the last gulp of the broth, I stare solemnly at the bowl before standing up and walking to the cash register. As he rings up the amount due, I asks him what the name of the ramen was and he answers, Kitsune Special, while giving me a vulpine grin. I blink in surprise at the name and looks at his face before internally admitting that name does fit the dish, since its chef has such a smile. He gives me my receipt and I stare at it for a prolonged moment before looking back up and giving him a questioning look. The price is surprisingly cheap. He wrinkles one of his brows and asks if something was wrong, to which I shook my head and reached to take out my wallet. As I pull out the necessary amount of money, I asks if I could buy another Kitsune ramen to take home. The blonde's grin came back full force and he pulls out a paper bag from under the counter that smells like the delectable ramen. As expected of a professional chef, to be able to read the customer so precisely. I gladly paid for the to-go bag as well and leave the shop with an extra skip to my step. After the first visit, I returned to the shop multiple other times and each time, the blonde would slowly usher me closer and closer to the last table before, somehow or another, I ended up sitting with them as I ate my meals. Was it because I come at odd hours and it's easier to cater me if I'm close by? Was it because everyone just want another member to the group and I'm the most closest one? Was it because I secretly want to join in the fun that they seem to have so much of? Whatever the case, I joined the little group, sitting next to the classmate, or is it year mate, of my peerage's knight, Issei, and the shop's silver-haired waitress, Matsuri. Ahem. Everyone, I have an announcement. The blonde ramen chef sitting besides Matsuri, Naruto, soberly declares while he continues to put his focus into the game before him. Everyone stops what they were doing and looks at the blonde. The middle-aged man, Dirt, puts away his newspaper and sips his coffee as he waits for the news. Issei pushes aside his homework and looks at Naruto questionably. Matsuri looks at the blonde next to her with patience and I slurp down the remainder of my bowl of ramen before turning my head towards the blonde. The blonde took a moment to save his current progress on the game and puts down his remote before standing up and out of his seat. He takes a step back and rectifies himself into full height before commandingly saying, "The ramen shop is not getting enough customers, therefore, we will now start to actively attract them. Does anyone have any ideas or suggesti to pass out some flyers?" Matsuri was the first to suggest something, even though it's a pretty mundane idea. I have done that already. Once a week, I post up posters and flyers that advertises the shop. The results is as you see before you. Naruto shakes his head as a negative and spreads his right hand to present the ever-empty shop. How about we go to make a few signs and wave them around in crowded streets? There's bound to be someone who'll notice that, right? Issei was the next to suggest an idea, but it was immediately shot down and rejected when Naruto says, "Then would you be the one to wave around that sign?" Another moment passed and finally, I come up with the most logical idea for getting attention: commercial advertisement. That could work. I've got a friend in the commercial industry that I could call for an open slot, but then, we are missing the filming equipments. Naruto contemplated the idea and confirmed that it's doable, but he's also missing some items. It is at this point that Dirt enters the conversation by slamming a thick suitcase onto the table. "Well, would you look at that? My company just so happened to have been making some portable and efficient filming devices and they gave some to me to test it out as a trial run." The middle-aged man opens up his suitcase to behold brand new, shiny devices. Good job, Dirt. Well then, let's go guys. I want to finish this by the end of today. Deciding that making a commercial is the plan to take, Naruto pulls out a notebook and starts writing something before walking out the door. The sign was a good idea too. Issei sulks as he puts his homework into his backpack and leaves it sitting next to the television stand before following after Naruto. Dirt closes his suitcase and glides out of the shop while sipping his coffee. Wait. We must close the shop up first, Naruto-sama. Matsuri quickly turns off the stoves, pushes in the chairs and cleans up the mess that has been made that day in record speed before grabbing a handbag from behind the counter and follows the group out. I quietly stand at the entrance, not exactly sure what to do before Matsuri grabs my hand and jog to catch up to the group. The silver-haired girl gives me a small smile when I give her a questioning look. It was a smile that says, "Please go along with it." At a random park, it took 10 minutes for the group to make it to the park where Naruto wanted to do the filming, another 5 minutes for everyone to get their lines, and the last 5 minutes to get everyone into the costumes of their roles, which dubiously came from Matsuri's handbag. Naruto's 10-minute masterpiece, which he wrote while making it to the park, is a 1-minute video about a villain, Dirty Instant Ramen, aka Dirt, wearing a cape that's held together by a bag of instant ramen, trying to rule the world with instant ramen. To do so, he must defeat the hero of homemade ramen, Ramen Rider Red, aka Issei, wearing a bra on his head and a visor plus armors made out of noodle flour. A fight occurs and his Ramen Rider Red is about to be defeated. He is saved by the hero of store-made ramen, Uzumaki Ramenyan, aka me. Wearing a pair of white cat ears and a Naruto Maki hair clip, together, Ramen and Ramenyan defeats Dirty and saves the world from instant ramen-induced apocalypse. Everyone, including myself and Matsuri, gives the blonde a dubious look for his so-called masterpiece of a script, and very nearly left before he offers up free ramen of any flavor for a week. We decided to go along with it and got into our roles. Naruto became the director, editor and stage preparation personnel while Matsuri became the person to write down cue cards for what we'll have to say. The script is surprisingly detailed for such a weird plot. Alright, everyone get ready. We'll take this in one take. Dirt, start leveling up. Issei, keep looking like normal. You got the perfect look of defeat on you. Sitting in a lawn chair with Matsuri holding up a big whiteboard behind his back, Naruto pulls out a megaphone and tells everyone to get into position. Issei sent the blonde a dark look but otherwise did what he was told. Nothing, action. Muahahaha. Today shall be your last. Ramen Rider Red, Dirt extravagantly flaps his cape and holds out his hand. Goo. Not yet, it's not dirty instant ramen. While saying his line, Issei took a step forward like his script told him to and blew up. I stare in surprise as the brunette squawks and flies a couple meters into the air before landing in a soft patch of grass and blowing up again. I hear a click behind me and turn around to see a madly grinning Naruto holding a switch that he clicks on periodically. Each click corresponds with an explosion as the script continues. By the time it was my turn to enter the scene, Issei is literally smoking from his entire body, though he didn't look hurt at all. Effect explosions maybe? Ha 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 ha. This is it, die Ramen Rider Red. Dirt makes another extravagant flap of his cloak and raises his hand towards Issei's direction when I take step in between with arms crossed in front of me. Though I expected it, I couldn't help but tighten my muscles like my training tells me to do as the ground before me blows up from the fake explosion. I felt nothing but a breeze passing by me, but the ground tells a different story. Truly, Naruto is a genius at blowing things up. Stop. As the smokescreen dramatically gets blown away by a random breeze, I am shown to be gallantly standing before a heavy breathing and smoking Issei. You stopped my attack? You? Who are you? Dirt's cape starts draping itself over him as he scowls at me and Issei. Uzumaki Ramenyan. Lightly blushing at the weird name I'm calling myself, I lean back into my boxing stance and await the next scene. No, it couldn't be. The Uzumaki Ramenyan of XXX Street on the corner of XXX, whose phone number is XXXXXX4X and is open for business at the convenient hours of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Dirt takes a horrified step backwards and says his lines perfectly without breaking facade. Even I was struggling to look at him directly without giggling. From behind me, Me gave a loud snort and starts rolling around on the ground laughing loudly. Yes. Failing at keeping my voice from quivering, I said my lines and actually thanked Naruto for giving me one-word dialogues. Ku, even you shall not stop me from my plans, Dirt screams aloud and charges. I pushed forward and met the surprisingly agile man in combat. Issei finally gets up from laughing and joins the fray a minute afterwards, turning the artistic sequence of blocking, dodging and attacking into an all-out brawl. I couldn't help but giggle very quietly when Naruto, with his vulpine grin, blew us up and joins in himself after screaming, "Cut," into his megaphone. The rest of the afternoon was spent on us dragging each other back to the shop. Only Issei needed the dragging really, and letting Matsuri bandage any scratches we might have had earned. Naruto allowed us exclusive views of the final draft a few days later, and instead of being a commercial, it turned into a full-length video called Ramen Days that Naruto posted up on MeTube for fun. It turned out to be surprisingly popular, as I found out later when my classmate starts pestering me to make more. Naruto and I also got more clients out of the deal as well, so it was a win-win situation. The clubroom is closed today due to Rias having to go to hell to meet her parents. Akeno joined her in the trip and Kiba went out of town to do something. Therefore, since I have nothing to do, I decided to go to the place where I've recently took up the loitering in, Uzumaki Ramen. As I leave the middle school division and got to the high school divisions, where the gates are closer to the marketplace than the middle school divisions, I see a familiar head of brown hair among two others. I curiously stalk closer and see that it definitely is Issei, though he is busy doing something with 2OT wanting to bother them, but also curious as to what he's doing. I hid behind a nearby tree and watch from the shadows. The trio quickly paced to a certain point at the school building before walking to a window in the wall and tiptoed themselves up to look into. With my enhanced senses, I picked up the noise of giggling, very perverse giggling, and I immediately figured out what the trio was doing. Issei senpai. Pervert. I deadpan to myself, and without looking any further into this event, I walk off and follow the path that I had been taking before. A few moments later, I hear the screams of many angry girls, the smacks and thuds of shinais on skin, and 3 differently pitched shrieks of agony. I smile a bit when I finally figure out why Issei sometimes would limp or have a bruise on his face. As I make it to the front of the high school division's building, I caught sight of another familiar head of hair. This one, however, is longer and far too styled to be the same as the one in my memory. It must be a coincidence. The closer I walk towards the figure though, the more unsure I become of myself. The person that I am looking at is without a doubt Naruto, but at the same time, this person cannot be Naruto. The reason? Naruto Uzumaki is a male and this person is strictly female. From looks to smell to the very pheromone this person reeks of, she is without doubt female. At the same time, however, she has the same sunny aura as the blonde in my memory. She has that slight ramen-flavored tang to her scent as that of the male blonde. She has the same vulpine grin on her face as when he casually smirks and the same glint in her blue eyes as when he's about to cause mischief. Simply put, this woman is also without doubt Naruto. I pause a few steps behind the woman as I confusedly decide on her identity. As if she could sense me, the woman turns around as she looks up from the stack of paper she was grinning at. She has on a momentary look of questioning before her grin returns with a vengeance, aimed at me. Yo, Ramenyan-chan. What are you doing here? A little far off from the middle school side, don't you think? I twitch my ears at the name and give him a glare. Only Naruto actually calls me that and he only does it to poke fun of me. I decide that since today was the last day that the video deal is in effect, that I am going to eat him out of his business. Ah, don't be like that. It's a cute nickname, they even made a fan club page dedicated to you. The blonde jokingly waves off my glare and tell me something I did not know. Nor is it something I want to know. Now I understand what those strange looks my clients give me are for. They were part of my fan club. I would have thanked God for those contractee having some common sense and decency if she were not a devil. Oh, you didn't know about the fan club? Well, now you do? Ha 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 ha. The blonde walks over and pats me on my head. I glare at him but didn't attempt to escape. If there was anything I learned about the blonde, it's that he's very good at head petting. Well, that and making ramen. As I indulged myself, my glare turns into an inquisitive look and the blonde notices immediately. Why am I at school? I nodded my head in confirmation. Well, I sort of work here. In fact, Matsuri and Dirt also works here as well. We're also students too. Ha 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 ha. My brows only scrunches up more in questioning. Originally, it was part of a prank for Issei but somehow or another, it became a permanent thing. Me and Matsuri are supposedly homeschooled students who are technically enrolled within Kuo Academy. We, including Dirt, are also substitute teachers whenever they need an extra hand as well. The blonde starts explaining how badly he messed with the system when I smelt something familiar coming towards us, only with a bloody tang did. Ah, Issei's finally here. Yahoo! Issei Kian. I blink owlishly as Naruto tunes his womanly switch up to 11 and pulls off something akin to Leviathan effect, which involves a subtle dimensional shift of the surrounding area into an isolated realm that was filled with sparkles, flowers and a pink sky. The effect is named after the inventor of said effect, one of the 4 current Satans, Seraphal Leviathan. Naruto? A slightly bloodied Issei said as he looks up from the stick that was acting as his crutch, only to be slammed down by a flying tackle from the blonde he mentioned. The 2 more bloodied boys behind him watches in humor as their comrade gets knocked down, then screams in resentment as they notice the one doing the knocking down. Then anger as Issei harshly throws Naruto off of himself and then fighty as they get into a brawl with the brunette for dissing off a perfectly fine woman. I watch in amusement as students starts crowding around the front of the school to watch the spectacle. Since most were preparing to leave or already leaving the school campus, there's a lot. Some were taking pictures while others gossips about the perverted trio finally having infighting. Naruto came back to my side with a satisfied face and a camera in hand. I didn't bother asking and he didn't bother commenting. It took another 30 minutes for the crowd to break up and Issei to crawl his way towards us. We proceeded to drag him back for Matsuri to work her bandage magic. Though the blonde excused himself for his actions with the pervert needs to repent for peeping on women. When Matsuri asked, it didn't help that he had a huge smile while trying to decide which picture of Issei getting beaten would go best into a photo album called Pranks Gone Right. Issei scowled and helped me clean the shop of ramen. I've never seen Naruto cried so hard before. Ding-a-ling, sup. Issei walks into the shop casually with his hands in his pockets and his bag hanging between the crook of his elbow. I turn my head to give him a nod of acknowledgement as he takes his seat next to me. Where's everybody? I know Dirt is out on a field trip since he told us yesterday, but shouldn't Matsuri or Naruto be manning the shop? Issei asks after he finishes fishing out his homework. I want to ask that too. I only just got here earlier but the pair was missing and the door was left opened. Maybe they had left to go shopping and forgot to lock the door. So they weren't here when you got here either, huh? Sheesh. How could they have forgotten to lock the door? Issei grumbles in agreement with me as I shook my head and stands up to search for something behind the counter. He pulls out a pair of keys and walks towards the door while saying, "Come on, they're probably at the shopping district. Maybe we could help them out." I look at his unattended homework and raise an eyebrow when I caught on to what he was attempting to do. Issei resolutely ignores my stare and I shrug. His grades, his problem, and unless he's a client, not my worries. I get out of my seat and follow after him. If Naruto comes back faster, then the Kitsune Ramen will also come to me faster. In the end, Issei went back to take the homework with him. Together, Issei and I navigated the mildly crowded market street while trying to find a trace or hide of the ramen pair. Along that way, Issei treated me to a chocolate bar and a liter of Nako Pop. He also treated himself to a visit at a local eroge shop and bought a newly released game. A little more walking happened and both of our stomach growls. He puts on a contemplative face before asking me if we should keep searching or get a quick bite to eat. Our stomach did the answering and we ended up at a maid cafe outside of the marketplace. Issei chooses a large hamburger and some fries from the menu while I went for some omuris and a large sundae. As we ate our respective meals, Issei pulls out his homework and attempts to do it. I got curious and scooted over with my large sundae to see what it was that he's doing since I might have seen it worked out with Kiba already. The end results involved the both of us clutching our heads in despair, though, for completely different reasons. I just got a minor brain freeze at this moment that one of my clients decides to show up in the shop and spots me. He comes over to say hi and sees the stack of homework before offering up help. I nodded when Issei cried out tears of joy. For such a seedy-looking man, my client was surprisingly efficient at teaching Issei his materials. Even I, who is a grade below, understood it rather easily. After my client was done explaining, he gets up and leaves with a wide smile while saying, "Enjoy the rest of your date, Ramenyan-san." I twitch at the nickname and glare at him while deciding to charge extra the next time he summons me. Issei quirks his eyebrow at the word date but shrugs indifferently and stuffs his finished homework into his bag. We meander back into the marketplace and decides to ask a random stall owner if he's seen the pair. After buying 4 bags full of fruit, the stall owner gives us news that Naruto challenged a visiting curry guru from India a few hours back. The stage was set at the artificial river bank that's a 5 minutes walk from here. The store owner waves us off and tells us that if we hurry, we might just catch them. With a nod to each other, we quickly ran to the location. It was not particularly hard to find because apparently, the match attracted quite some attention. There is a small crowd of observing people circling the bank, most are sitting on the grass slope. The ground area has 5 noticeable people. The first 2 is at the kitchen area efficiently moving around so quickly, they were leaving after images. One is the person that we've been looking for, Naruto, while the other is a lean but well-muscled half-naked Indian man with white eyes. Behind the kitchen area, near the slopes, is a giant golden gong and a table that seated the other person we were looking for, Matsuri, doing play-by-play commentary for the crowd. In front of the kitchen area, with their backs to the river, were 3 people sitting at a judging station, completed with their own electronic scoring board. Issei sighs in exasperation as he palms his face and walks down the slope towards Matsuri's direction. I quirk an eyebrow at the scene and follow after the brunette. Matsuri seems to notice us as she gives us a quick smile and pats the 2 chairs waiting next to her sides. We both took a seat, Issei on the left and me on the right, before she continues commenting. Issei shrugs and pulls up a microphone to help the comment session as well. I started feeling a little left out and pulled one towards my side to join in. I didn't say much, but it's the thoughts that count. As the match continues to the finale, both combatants closes their pots at the same time and starts glaring each other down. Huh, why are they staring at each other? This is the most important match in the long series of their battles, Issei-kun, the match of wills. Match of wills? Yes, using their cooking spirits. Both chefs enter spirit combat where they do back and forth combat to defend their cooking. The match is split into 4 mini-matches. Whomever makes it to 4 points first wins and gets a slight blessing of taste from the cooking gods. Oi, that's basically the rules to tennis. 15 love, Naruto. You mean he's winning? How can you tell? After the match of will, which the guru won by a turnover attack, both contestants shook hands and went to their pots to finalize their dishes to bring to the judges. Naruto took out 3 bowls filled with handmade ramen noodles and ladled some of his curry onto it, while the guru took out 3 plates of plain white rice which he ladles his curry on. As one, they finished the final touches to their dishes and both went towards the judge. It seems that the guru agrees for Naruto-sama to go first. Issei-kun, can you tell us what dish Naruto-sama has planned? He wrote down coffee curry ramen, in one line by the way, with no commas. Eccentric. It truly is. After a year of riddling through his debts, Naruto-sama has mastered the art of replacement so well that he can easily make anything out of anything as long as it involves the word ramen. I'm pretty sure that's not a good thing. Points, Naruto 24. And Naruto-sama finishes with a devastating 24 out of 30 points given by the judges. How will the guru compare to this blow? Issei-kun, what is the dish the guru prepared? Plain curry. Oh, proving his skills with the most basic dish, the guru goes with plain curry. WHOSHHHHH, boom mm. What the heck is that? That was the legendary taste bud explosion technique, Issei-kun. The rumored final skill that all chefs work their whole life for to get. Since when did cooking have something like hat? 30 points. Guru wins. I see, not even Naruto-sama could stand up against him. Issei-kun, please call for an ambulance. An ambulance? Why? Isn't it obvious, Issei-kun? The judges just experienced having their taste buds exploded. Look, the middle one is coughing up blood. Taste bud explosion wasn't a figure of speech? Didn't the guru just fed them explosives then? Delicious. Oi, don't eat that. The rest of that day was spent eating the leftover curry from the competition while watching the sunset. Most of the crowd chose the safer path and ate Naruto's curry while some brave, read as stupid, fools tried the guru's explosive curry. There's a group of emergency ambulance for those who actually ate the guru's curry. Surprisingly enough, only Naruto and I survived the taste bud explosion. Even the guru succumbed to its explosive powers after the third bite. His last words were, "I had no idea what I was doing." #blind as heck lol. His loss was greatly mourned for. Hey Ramen, which choice should we pick? I look up from my bowl of ramen to see Naruto and Issei concentrating intensely at the game on the television. I put my bowl down next to Issei's forgotten homework and look at the screen to read the choices. 1. Challenge her to a fight to the death where the victor takes that loser's love. 2. Get on your knees and ask her out for a marriage interview like a man. 3. Kill her family, kill her family, kill her family, kill her family, kill her family. I read the text a second time and gave Naruto a face that says, "Well," implies, "The hell?" Naruto looks at my face and nods in understanding. He then pulls out the box that the game came from and handed it to me. I read the text on the box and find that there's nothing wrong with the commercializing. The box is colorful and attracts attention. The art is pretty good, my senses were trained by the Otoku Lord, Rias Gremory herself, so I should know, and the summary attracts the interest of readers. Overall, there's nothing about this game that implies whatever those options on the television count as. Again, Naruto nods in understanding and says, "I know exactly what you're thinking. The company that created this game is completely sane and normal, but the problem is one of their writers. For some reason, the Tsunere route that this company lets out is written by the same madman time after time. In the last game, it took the efforts of all four of us, me, Matsuri, Issei and Dirt to defeat this route." I scrunch an eyebrow at his explanation and reread the choices. Out of all of them, choice 2 is the safest option, but if what Naruto says is true, then that means that one guy wrote this whole script, which would make choice 2 an unpredictable wildcard. Going by that logic, the craziest one is the one with the most results. Choice 3. Naruto grunts and presses the option for number 3. Issei nods and understanding holds his breath. I watch curiously to see what will happen. The end result of that choice ended in the main character dying via girl and making the 2 restart from the very start with no skip button as a penalty. Both Naruto and Issei screams, "Damn Tsunere," in impotent rage. I quirk my eyebrow and continue eating my ramen bowl. One memorized the name of the game and took note to ask my crimson-haired king about it. Her trip to hell. She might know how to beat the game. Naruto curses aloud and I curiously gave the television a glance to see that the game turned from a dialogue playthrough to a beat-them-up action RPG. Really? This is what accounts for love these days in the gaming industry. It looks interesting though, so maybe I can ask Naruto if I could have a turn at playing. The rest of that day was spent with us playing games and cursing out the game developers. Honestly, this is coming from a real-life devil here. The Tsunere route is really screwed up. Even more so than most of the stray devils that Rias had them fight as training. Those devils are like small onus compared to the amount of insanity the writers shoved into half of this route. Alright cast of Ramen Days, we're making a music video. On the morning of a typical weekend Saturday, Naruto makes a bold declaration as everyone did their thing. Matsuri blinks with her cup of tea halfway towards her lips. Issei looks up from his plentiful packages of homework. Dirt raises an eyebrow from just atop his newspaper. I blink lazily as I chew my ramen-flavored manju. Can I ask what brought this up, Naruto-sama? Matsuri sets down her cup and tilts her head. Naruto nods and says, "The management of MeTube seems to like the video so much, they contacted me and see if I can make more, or if not, sell them the rights to the idea so that they could branch off into their own series. I decided to sell it, and oh, that reminds me." The blonde searches his pants pocket for a bit before pulling out 4 plastic bank cards and hands them to each member in the table. "Here, take this. It has the amount that the video was sold for divided by 4. It's quite a sum even when split. Now then, where was I? You sold the video," Issei offhandedly says as he checks out the snazzy new debit card in his hand. His face grinning like mad when he comes up ideas on how to spend the money. I have no doubt that he's planning on spending it on questionable magazines and games. Right, so as I sold the video, one of the guys asks if I could make a theme song for the Ramen Days series. So yeah, who's good at singing? Naruto blandly finishes as he pulls out the video recorder Dirt left at the ramen shop from the last shooting. Everyone at the table stare at each other before shrugging and gets up from their seats to get ready. After 5 minutes of clearing up each of their respective mess, the crew shuffles out the door almost lethargically. We walk to the park of the last filming without much small talk as the sun satirizes our skin with good old skin cancer rays. Once we got there, Issei asks what Naruto is planning on doing and the blonde responds with a cryptic, random actiony things that'll be thrown together with a snazzy beat and a good singer. I took a moment to process the blonde's words and decided that Naruto has no idea what the heck he's gonna do either. You have no idea what to do. Issei thought the same and states it aloud. The blonde puts on a nervous smile while whistling and looking into the far-off sky. Issei sighs and drops back first into the grass with his eyes closed. Dirt laughs and sat down by his left side. I sat down by his right side and together, we watched the clouds go by as Naruto tries to come up with something coherent. He gives up a while after and watches the clouds with us, next to me and with Matsuri by his side. We stayed like that for the rest of the morning till late afternoon. Eventually, we got up and returned to the ramen shop where we spent the rest of the day lazing around and playing video games. On the plus side, I actually helped them finish the Tsunere route. I still question the route creators' mentality, seeing as the quickest way to getting a good ending is greet by fist to face. Challenge her to a fight to the death where the victor takes that loser's love. Spare her and take the hands of the boy she likes, kill his family, kill his family, kill his family, kill his family, flaming burritos. Venom doesn't kill me that quickly, I can't live without you, die. It really makes for disturbing dialogue when the both of you are trying to kill each other only to instead fall in love. In the end, the ending was nice and Matsuri seems to really like the melodramatics, but this is only because she started playing with us near the end. Issei and I have mixed feelings about the route as a whole and Naruto straight out hated it. He used that hatred as fuel in order to make the music video out of the unused scenes from the previous shooting and finished in record time. It was surprisingly good considering he was working with leftovers, but that left the problem with the song. Without further ado, Naruto drags the group to our newest location to spend the evening, a karaoke bar. Even though half of the group is underaged, Naruto somehow got us through into the crowded bar and orders that we must each go to the stage once to sing. Whomever gets the most votes from our fellow barmates is the one that's going to sing in the music video. Issei was the first to go up with the encouragement, read his harsh push, using the feat, from Naruto. He searched the song list for a few seconds and then found a song he liked immediately. The title is 99 Words for Boobs. The crowd seems to have loved it even though his singing was somewhat subpar and gave him a whooping 85 points. Most of it came from the fact that Issei had enough balls to sing that crap. Matsuri went next and found a song that she likes after a few minutes of searching. She sang the tea song beautifully, and though the lyrics were on the questionable side, the crowd were moved enough by Matsuri's voice alone to actually give up their alcohol and drank some tea. She got a huge 95-point judgment from the crowd. The remaining 5 points were from people who were too drunk and were busy hurling in the corner. Dirt was immediately skipped over by Naruto when he wondered if there was a coffee song allowed. The depressed man joined the hurler's corner. I was urged next, and just so I wouldn't have to waste time memorizing any lyrics or worry about messing up the words, I chose the easiest one in my repertoire, the Nyan Cat song. Taking in a huge gulp of air, I started nyaning continuously for the next 10 minutes. When I finally got tired, I left the stage with the following of a few awkward applause and a score of 70, surprisingly enough. I glance at Naruto and smirks at the twitch he has on his right eye as he stares back at me. It almost made up for the sore throat. I went to the bar area as Issei was made to go up again and sing a legit song. The bartender was nice enough to give me a glass of warm honeyed milk without me even asking. I gave a gracious nod and spent the rest of the stay at the bar drinking milk, watching Issei and Matsuri have a sing-off and then see Naruto, in the female disguise that he's so good at, conquer the whole thing pop idol style. We split off afterwards to go to our respective homes, Naruto with his huge trophy and I with a teddy bear. And at least you tried prize were the ones that the majority of the crowd cheered for the most to come back. Faster, better, smarter, stronger. Do not hold back, Issei. Walk forward and do not pause. A moment's hesitation is the end. Naruto, in a white kimono and blue hakama, slams the bamboo sword in his hand to his side and makes a powerful crack with the wind. Will you stop yelling? It's more distracting than helpful. Without turning his head away from the piece of paper before him, Issei snaps at Naruto as he quickly writes down equations and solutions with amazing speed. Pages after pages of seemingly random questions about math, social studies, Japanese, English and science flies by and Issei scrunches his brows to quickly do them all. Do your best, Issei-kun. You can do it. Sitting next to Issei, Matsuri encourages the boy on with her words of motivation. Issei responds with a grunt that sounded almost like, "Thanks bro," before quickening the already insane P worksheets with. A vein becomes visible on his forehead, under the headband with a rising sun on it, and his eyes becoming slightly more bloodshot. Subject is experiencing the after effects of coffee distribution injection. The new dose of black coffee is now ready for injection. This will only sting for a bit, Issei-kun. Dirt taps the tip of the needle in his hand twice and then quickly shoves it into the brunette's shoulder with no prior warning. Just as quickly as he shoved it in, Dirt injects the black concoction within the needle into Issei's vein and pulls out before bandaging the wound with expert skills. For a brief moment, Issei stops moving altogether. His breath cuts short and his eyes dilate into almost pure whiteness before he returns to normal and continues at his previous assault on the packages of worksheets. In between page flipping, he gives Dirt an evil glare and says, "Stop doing that. I feel like I'm losing a year of my life whenever you shove that into my system." Ha 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 ha. It's nothing as drastic as that at all, Issei-kun. It's only a week or two, maybe a month at most that you're losing. The middle-aged man laughs off Issei's evil eye and sips his coffee. You mean I'm really dying? Issei almost stops to look at the man in horror, almost. Focus, Issei. No hesitation allowed. Naruto slams his bamboo sword into the brunette's head in a well-placed motion that reminiscence to what his old toad teacher did to him when he learned sage art. Amazingly enough, it works pretty well. I silently watch the group as they continued their review session. It's fascinating to see a normal human work at a speed that would be enviable even to magic users. Then again, it might have had something to do with the drugs that Dirt is pushing into his body. That stuff cannot be healthy. As the boy finally finishes the last of his worksheets and hands them over to Matsuri, he collapses in exhaustion. I tilt my head and sedately walk over to his prone body to nudge it while the others are busy organizing the mess of pages. I stare at his snoring form and use my enhanced senses to check if he was alright. Aside from the strong smell of coffee, he at least smelled like he is going to live. I nodded and walk over to the others who have started grading the papers. I stared for a bit before Naruto caught the hint and hands me a package, an answer sheet and a highlighter. I took it and sat next to him to start grading Issei's fake final exam. Unsurprisingly, I didn't need to use the highlighter that much, or at all. The math test's result is 100%. He only had one problem where he had to make a guess, but he narrowed it down to the right choices and got the right guess. I guess this is only to be expected of the one whom Kiba had, in the passing, called a genius pervert first year, who got such a high score on a test that is far harder than the mandated average, as per set by Kuo Academy's standards. But really, I know the truth of the matter. Issei is nowhere near being a genius. He just happens to work more efficiently than others of his peer. With the daily doses of homework packages from Naruto, help from Dirt and Matsuri and a lot of encouragement, again, from Naruto, Issei has a better study plan than even a third-year student, theoretically. He's no genius by any stretch of the word, but he's a hard worker. Naruto seems to agree with a merry grin as everyone finishes grading and hands him their results. Theoretically, he would have made a total of 500, the perfect score and 7 points higher than the current rank 1 of his year. Momo Hanakai, from her previous test. The blonde pats the unconscious brunette's shoulder lightly as a show of approval and tells Matsuri to prepare the guest futon. I gave a long yawn and looks at the clock that reads 11:30. Supposedly, this is a lot earlier than the previous attempt to cram things into Issei's mind. Once the bedding is secured, Dirt takes Issei to the rightmost futon and left him there before taking his own mattress next to the teen. Matsuri and I took the two leftmost futons and slept, leaving the middle one for Naruto. I cautiously angle a watchful stare at the blonde as he pulls out a laptop and types away at it. The smile on his face tells me something foreboding. Morning the next day, I'm late, equipped with a piece of buttered toast in his mouth. Issei rushes out of the ramen shop calculating that if he runs straight to school now, he'll barely make it in time. Good luck, Issei-kun. Matsuri calls out after the boy as he runs off. He gave a backhand wave in return to show his acknowledgement. Ya www. I gave a mouth-gaping yawn as I rubbed my eyes and tried to straighten the tie on my neck. I know that I am also late for my own class, but I'm not that much of a morning person. In fact, I usually have 2 to 7 alarm clocks ready in my bedroom to wake me up each morning. They obviously weren't here and so, I'm awake and sleepy. Relax, Ramen. I mailed your teacher earlier stating that you're not coming to school today. You're not missing much either, just some review works. Naruto pats my head as he walks by with a bowl of morning ramen. One blink drowsily at him and process his words. Leerily, I follow him to the table and sit in my usual seat. Matsuri brings me a cup of fresh orange juice and a bowl of cereal a while after. I thank her as she took her seat next to Naruto before lazily scooping the meal to my mouth. So what's the plan this time? Classic teacher-student support staff. Dirt sips his coffee and asks Naruto. Yes, that is the plan that we're most consistent with. We will leave in 10 minutes by car and make it there before Issei. It should give us enough time to go to step 2 of the operation. Naruto nods and hands everyone in the table a folder. I look at mine and reads, Watcher, Brain. Naruto had the same one as well while Matsuri had one that's labeled, Student. I turn to Naruto with a questioning stare and he gives me a grin while holding up a camouflage suit around my size. I blink. Kuo Academy, target is moving in school. Reaching the second floor in 2. Matsuri, hold position. Dirt, report. Naruto broadcasts into his mic as he looks through a binocular. I bite a ramen-flavored manju in my hand and looks through my binocular as well. Apparently, the group has a long-standing tradition of helping Issei on his major tests, starting from the last midterms till today. Yes, Naruto-sama. Matsuri gave her affirmative and continued looking over her textbook in her classroom. Test acquired. Reading proves that 99% of the test was predicted accurately. Dirt's voice rang through the radio's earphones and I caught a frown growing on Matsuri's lips. That's okay Matsuri, you worked well with that percent error. Improve next time, Naruto calmly states. Yes, Naruto-sama. Matsuri dutifully agrees and puts up her textbook as Dirt walks into the room. Here, I voice myself moments before Issei rushes into the classroom, sweating and out of breath, and jumps into his seat next to Matsuri. He didn't even give her or Dirt's presence a second thought as he gulps down the drink she hands him. Surprisingly, nobody gives him a second glance either as they turn around and listens to Dirt's instructions. I wonder if this is already normal occurrence for the class. Having random classmates and teachers show up I mean. The test, helping, was quite simple once we got into it really. Naruto and I just keep watch of Issei while munching on snacks in the tree we're on and see when he starts slowing down. If he pauses, which he rarely does, we ring up Matsuri on the problem and she discreetly, help Issei out. I don't quite understand how Issei always seemed to understand the vague gestures that the Silverette do but it works. Dirt's only job is to walk by the room and get everyone to pay attention to their own test instead of looking around and potentially spotting Matsuri's helping. Not that they'd be able to understand it anyways. After 3 tests, the student and we all decided to camp out on the empty roof of the building eating Matsuri's pre-packed lunches from this morning. The sky made good eating weather and I managed to doze off for a bit while the others talked. Lunch was an enjoyable affair. I like the dessert Matsuri made. As the half-hour passes by, Issei, Dirt and Matsuri returns to the classroom while Naruto and I stayed on the roof. Since the last 2 tests are something that Issei is confident in, Naruto and I decided to give the brunette the benefit of the doubt and lays out on the tiled roof to watch the clouds. The ramen-flavored dangos that Naruto brought tasted pretty good too. At about the end of the last test, Naruto gave me the uniform for Akuo Academy's high school division and pushes me to the bathroom to change. I questionably got dressed and walks out to find Naruto in his female disguise and Akuo Academy's uniform as well. He takes me to the classroom that Dirt, Matsuri and Issei resides. As he reaches for the handle, he tells me to put on a big smile and say, "NYA," on his cue. I looked questionably at him again but consented. His devious vulpine grin came with a vengeance as he swung open the door. A random street between Kuo Academy and Uzumaki's Ramen. Ooch. Issei groans as he wobbles about. He glares at Naruto's direction and says, "Do you really have to do this every time you show up at my school?" "Yes." Naruto looks up from the camera in his hand and grins at the brunette. "You're a bastard." Issei grumbles. "Correction, I'm the bastard." Naruto wiggles his brows and references to something obscure he found on the internet. Now Naruto-san, we shouldn't jab at Issei-kun for defending the honors of his beloved ladies." Dirt grins from behind the group and takes a jab at Issei. "I'm sure that if you had explained it calmly, you could have got away with a few less bruises." Matsuri calmly says as she gives Naruto and Dirt a reprimanding glare. The two withered back and whistles off tune while looking at the sky. I stare in humor at their antics and nibble on a Pocky that one the many students who confessed his undying love to me, and Naruto, and Matsuri, offered while Issei fought off a crowd of his classmates for either having such an awesome harem, or being a lolicon bastard. I am starting to see the ambiance of pranking Issei, it's delicious. But yeah, this one is being overdone so I'll stop and come up with something else. Naruto waved his slender hand in the air and winks at Issei. Am I supposed to be happy because of death? Issei glowers at the blonde and begins saying something as they turn for an intersection in the street. He misplaces his step and trips on a crack in the road which ended with him falling on the side of the road. Just as a car that was speeding past a yellow light from a moment ago rushed towards him. My eyes grow wide as I hear the honking of the car in my ear and I made to quickly run towards the brunette, fully intending on stopping the car with my body. Even with my natural speed though, I could see that I would be too late to help. I was too late from the start. The car was going too fast to begin with. Scenes passes across my sight as I could already see what was going to happen. Issei getting hit. Blood splattering across the street. Me making it to the brunette first after failing to do anything. Me helplessly trying to aid him as he loses the light in his eyes. Me failing to make a difference, once again. The moment passes and I choke down a cry as I try to put more strength into my limbs to take a bigger step, even if I know I wouldn't make it. The car continues its ever closer path towards the teen. A meter 2 feet 1 feet 12 centimeter 1 centimeter. And at that moment, I close my eyes, not wanting to see the gruesome scene. Only to bump into something soft and silky. It took me a moment, but I take a confused step back and open my eyes for a teary look at Naruto, holding Issei by his collar, with a scowl and whisker-like marks that was once too light to be discernible on his face. His body thrums with a familiar energy and his eyes outlined with red eyeliners. His pupil a mix of red and yellow with a cross as his irides. Another image overlaps him for a moment and I take a choked, horrified gasp. Naruto's hair took on a black hue, his uniform turning into a shortened black kimono, his scowl turning into a playful grin and his pupils into slitted cat eyes. Naruto used senjutsu. Well, I guess I can make it home from here. Thanks for the help earlier, Naruto. In the setting sun in front of Uzumaki Ramen, a pale Issei Hyodo attempts to give his group of friends a cheery grin as he walks off on unsteady legs. It looked more like a grimace than anything else. Are you sure you want to walk home by yourself? I'd be glad to keep you company. Naruto scrunches his eyebrow in a show of worry and offers help. The brunette shakes his head in negative and says no thanks before marching off slowly. The blonde worriedly watches as his friend walk away with faltering steps into the distance before turning the corner and away from sight. He has an inkling of what Issei is feeling. His first impression of a near-death experience in his first C-rank mission shook him up as well, even though he was trained for such a thing. The almost car accident from earlier is taking its toll on the brunette. I better be off as well, it's been a long day, ha ha ha. Dirt tries to lighten the atmosphere with his laughter, but it came out rather strange sounding. He walks off in another direction as Naruto watches his back with narrowed eyes and a small frown. I'll go buy some ingredients for tonight's dinner. Would you like anything in particular, Naruto-sama? Matsuri turns her step towards the fresh produce open stalls area and asks the blonde for suggestions. Naruto shrugs his shoulders and says, anything's fine. Just buy a lot of extra, besides Ramenyan-chan here. I feel like we might get a few more guests coming in for dinner. Matsuri smiles sweetly and lightly bows her head towards the blonde before walking off to procure ingredients. As she gets out of sight, Naruto turns towards the shop's entrance while fishing his pants for the shop's keys. He unlocks the door and walks in before stopping to beckon the hesitant middle schooler behind him to follow. Kaneko bites her lips lightly in thought and proceeds to follow the one whom she has recently come to consider a friend. She follows him into the shop and is led up the flight of stairs to his and Matsuri's room. She follows his invite for her to take a seat at the low-lying table in the middle of the room and accepts his offer of warm tea. As Kaneko sits silently and drinks the prepared tea, Naruto slowly forms a gudama in the hand that's out of her sight and below the table. Manipulating it for a bit and adding Asura's chakra to it, he slowly raises the newly made sword of Nunoboko and stabs the ceiling. As the roof and walls flicker like static, Naruto pours himself a cup of tea and watches as his surrounding change from a room to a desolate green meadow. Kaneko watches intently as Naruto pulls out a helix. Staff, blade, rod, from below the table and impales it into the ceiling? What happened next is beyond what she could understand. She felt the room shifted. Before her eyes, the room changes into a plain with nothing but grass for as far as her eyes could see. The floor of the room and everything on the floor was still with them, but besides those, nothing else is there. The wall is gone, the ceiling is gone, the lower floors is gone, and the very neighborhood is completely gone. She tested to see if it is an illusion, only for her senses to tell her that it's not. The sun's warmth feels too real, the smell of grass is too real, the very minuscule sounds of the grassland bugs is too real. Despite the situation, however, she did not feel panicked. In fact, if anything, she feels calm, at peace. Like the very world is welcoming her presence and is actively making her feel safe. I thought we could use some privacy for our talk. Don't worry, in this world, there is no chance that anyone will stumble in on us. So take your time and think about what you want to talk about. We have all the time in the world right now, and I'll answer anything you want. The blonde sips his cup soundlessly and stares off into the distant sky as he talks to the girl before him. Kaneko blinks and stares some more at the blonde. A minute passes by, and then 2, and then 3. The blonde stayed silent throughout it all and did nothing but sip his tea. The white-haired girl lowers her gaze back towards her still steaming tea after affirming that the blonde really was planning on doing nothing other than sip tea and wait for her to start. She thought about his words. Is there something she wants to talk about? Besides the surprising use of senjutsu earlier that the blonde used to save Issei. Is there anything she wants to talk about? Speak your mind, do not keep them in your thoughts. Even I cannot understand such things. Naruto stares at the golden-eyed girl before him with his own sapphire orbs and calmly states. How did you use senjutsu? Kaneko took a deep breath and asks the one thing that's plagued her since the car accident. Well, that and her brunette friend's mentality. Senjutsu is a technique that uses the untapped energy within nature and embeds it into one's own body to give an aggregate amount of boost to a number of parameters. The way I do it is as simple as breathing. I merely let the energy of nature flow into my body and mixes it with my own internal storage. Does that answer your question? Naruto lists off what he remembers from Old Man Toad Fukasaku and inputs his own experience with the technique to answer the girl. He already knew that this wasn't what she is looking for, but he also didn't know what that is that she is looking for to begin with. No, Kaneko shakes her head at his first attempt at answering her question before deciding to specify it. How did you not fall into insanity, like my sister? Senjutsu is regulated into the body by using one's inner energy. Out of all known substances that reacts with emotions the most, inner energy lies at the very top of the list. If one's emotions is in turmoil, then the inner energy will be the same. If use of senjutsu is done in this state of turmoil, increase in aggravation might be a result. Because of that, I was taught to use senjutsu after long periods of meditation which empties my mind of any thought. Starting to understand the white-haired girl's problem a slight bit more, Naruto explains his own experience, though changing a fact here and there and replacing the word chakra with inner energy. Even if senjutsu is also a thing in this world, he has no guarantee that anything else he knows is. No, once more, the girl gives a baffling shake of her head and argues, senjutsu absorbs the world's malice. How could you ignore that? Unlike my sister. Senjutsu itself is an act of tapping into the latent power of the world. The world itself is not predominantly evil, therefore it has to no malice nor love to entice the users of senjutsu with. As I've stated before, senjutsu gives a boost towards certain parameters. Emotion is very easily one of these parameters. Naruto puzzlingly looks at the girl before him. Though he measured his words carefully before using them, he's been doing nothing but aggravate her more and more. But that can't be. Kaneko grimaces and looks down, completely covering her eyes from the worried blonde's sight with her bangs. Senjutsu makes you mad. I'm only talking from my experience. Using senjutsu does amplify one's emotions, though not to a point of insanity. I was definitely more impassioned than I would be otherwise at times in the past. Naruto points out as he collects the energy of nature into himself and mixes it with his own worries for the girl before him. He then leans over the table and pats the girl's lowered head gently, slowly offering the newly created batch of nature chakra that he just made. Kaneko tenses as she feels the touch but relaxes as she feels the familiar warmth. The warmth that, in her memories, her father and mother had bathed her in. The warmth that her sister had tried to give her before the incident. The warmth that Naruto used to save Issei. The warmth of senjutsu, hinted with Naruto's worries and doubts. And this warmth is not evil. A single tear He realizes that she knew this. But if this is true, then that means her Ne-sama killed their saviors voluntarily. Her beloved, kind, caring, affectionate and compassionate sister killed the man who had helped them and abandoned her to death. Why, Ne-sama? So your sister is the cause. Naruto sighs as the resemblance he noticed on the first day of their meeting deepened. This girl, she's similar to Sasuke. He looks at her as a teardrop falls from the shadow of her bangs and sighs mentally. You know, someone else I knew had the same sounding problem. If you don't go into details, his life pretty much summaries into a tragic play where his brother betrays him out of love and duty and he goes to take revenge. My friend deeply regrets what he did to his brother because he was too late to see what's underneath of the underneath. Please, don't let it happen to you. Kaneko feels the blonde pet her head one more time before lifting up his hand up and withdrawing. Along with his hand leaves the warmth of senjutsu. She shivers at the small loss of heat but chooses to focus on the blonde's words instead. She knew what it means. She had heard the blonde repeat it offhandedly multiple times before to Issei when a prank succeeds. To see what's underneath the hidden, the true meaning of the truth. So, is there a truth behind why her sister killed their benefactor and committed so many other crimes to alleviate herself to the ranks of an SS-class stray devil? Is there a reason for her sister to abandon her to death? Is there any reason for her beloved sister to commit such atrocities besides simple madness like what she once thought? Kaneko couldn't find the answer. She doesn't understand the mind of her beloved sister. She didn't want to understand the mind of her beloved sister. She was too filled with pity for herself to try and understand her older sister. She hated her older sister and she still hates her older sister. But even so, Kuroka is still my beloved Ne-sama. And, as Ne-sama's little sister, I will find out why she did it. And find it in me to forgive her. Even if problems and conflicts arises between them, they will still be able to find it in their heart to forgive the one who's wrong. That is what siblings are, a bond that goes beyond hatred and trust. That is what Kaneko wants to believe she shares with Kuroka. Through the memories of their time together, through the love that they shared for each other, through the trials that is left for one another, Sharon wishes to trust that Kuroka still loves her like she loves her older sister. For that, she'll search. Good, you've finally decided then? Naruto's worries eases up as the girl lifts her head again. She simply nodded, her face free of all the troubles that had plagued her before and a gentle, almost serene, smile is attached to her lips. Naruto grins at that and once more reaches his hand upwards, grasping what should be air and pulling down the sword of renewal. The field of grass flickers like a bad television channel and returns to the four-walled room that it was earlier that day. Looking at the clock on the wall, he widens his eyes a bit and promptly gets up. He motions Kaneko to do the same and says, "Come on Kaneko. We better hurry before Matsuri finishes cooking. She's making everyone's favorite today." "Sharon," Kaneko says while following the blonde as he rushes downstairs. The older teen pauses mid-flight and turns to look at her with a question in his eyes. She decides to elaborate, "Please call me Sharon." "If that's what you want. Come on Sharon, I can smell Matsuri's ramen finishing cooking." Still with a small hint of confusion in his eye, the blonde grins descends the stairs once more. The white-haired girl follows with a small smile on her lip. "Earlier, I better be off as well, it's been a long day, ha ha ha." Dirt waves at the three standing before him and trudges off as they gave their goodbyes and acknowledgements. He walks down the worn road and lets his thoughts wander about. "Looks like I've been a bit careless. For someone to find me in this form." He smiles bitingly and puts his hands in his pockets. It might have been a coincidence that the agent of Ouroboros found him, but he's also at fault for letting the agent recognize his true self. Fortunately, he at least managed to stop information about his form and identity from leaking upon the agent's notice, but when will it be until the next coincidence occur? He pauses and leans to the side as a group of small boys and girls runs past him, all giggling and happy, without a care in the world. He smiles a bit when the thought that he is the same strikes him. Spending time with the people he met in the mundane ramen shop changed his views quite a bit. Spending time with them, not as an overseer or a watcher but as a participant, gave him new insights. The feelings that they have together, the joyful feelings that they experience together when doing something fun, the anticipation of waiting together for something nice, the frustrating feelings of trying to solve something seemingly impossible together, the victorious feeling of conquering the impossible together. These are things that he had never felt before, living in the void. These are the things he enjoys feeling now, living with the beings of Earth. And these are what he wants his fellow companion of the void to feel. He hums as he shifts his hands in his pocket to get into a slouchier walking position when he feels something within the socket of his pants. Pulling it out puzzlingly, he finds a small folded note with a short message in it that reads, "Come to the park," before burning in a flash of fire. His smile strains a bit when he recognizes the handwriting and rubs the soot off of his hand. For a moment, he mirthlessly laughs at the thought of the blonde not over-exasperating everything. Truly, that'll be the day. Stuffing his hands back into his pocket, he changes directions to the park. "Park? Ah, so it was you who gave me this after all, Naruto-san." Dirt walks towards the familiar blonde teen that he said goodbye to not 20 minutes ago while waving around his still sooty hand. "Though, I must admit, I'm quite shocked to see that you're confessing to me. Matsuri-san and Issei-kun would be crushed when they hear the news of our new relationship." Matsuri just has a strange sense of obligation. Naruto twitches his eyebrow in irritation and tries to justify the reason why the silver-haired girl stays by his side for so much of their time together. The smile that Dirt gave says that he's not convinced or even listening properly. This makes the blonde twitch his eyebrow at a faster frequency. "Anyways, the reason I called you out is because of this guy." "Oh." Dirt walks closer to Naruto and takes a look at the man sitting next to the blonde. The new person is a nondescript man in his late 20s. His hair is a shade of dirty blonde, indicating that he's a foreigner or at least of foreign blood, and he wears a pair of casual black khakis and a white buttoned-up dress shirt with a gray tie hanging off of the collar. The sleeping foreigner looks like any businessman in all sense of the word, and nothing but one thing displaces him from others. The foreigner has an unusually large, unnatural magic system. Dirt looks to the man's side and back at Naruto. "Is this the man that caused our problem earlier?" "Yeah, he's the idiot that used the unknown wide area technique when we were walking back to the shop. I had no idea what the technique was, so I prompted to track, capture and interrogate him instead." Naruto scowls at the man and gives the foreigner a look that practically screams of his urge to punch the sleeping form. The technique is an illusionary spell of avoidance. The area that is targeted will turn into a field where people without certain levels of magical power will avoid with a vengeance. That's the reason why Issei and that car's driver is affected, but not everyone else. Dirt offhandedly says as he sips his cup of coffee and takes a seat teen, with the foreign man on the teen's left side. He looks over to the scowling blonde and asks, "So did the interrogation go well?" "The interrogation? Oh yeah, that went perfectly well. Scared him so hard, he pissed himself and started talking even before I could question him on anything." Naruto sarcastically tirades to the middle-aged man on his right while waving his left hand in the air as if to shape out the abstract scene. The man next to him raises an eyebrow to ask a silent question, and Naruto sighs before saying, "He began talking the moment I appeared and then fainted. He's been like this ever since." "What did he say?" Dirt inquisitively asks as Naruto slapped the foreigner's cheek in an attempt to wake him up. It didn't work. "Some crap about how the Great Office is going to defeat the apocalyptic beast, Great Red, and take back what's rightfully hers or something like that." The blonde pauses and reaches into his pocket to pull out a Ziploc bag with a small thumb-size marble figure of a snake. He also spat this out after it became a choking hazard. What'd you do to piss off this nutcase and his boss? Ho? What makes you think I'm involved in this, Naruto-san? Dirt smirks and leans onto one hand that had its elbow propped onto his knee while staring at the blonde. The blonde glares at him irritably. Apocalypse, Naruto pronounced every syllable with narrowed eyes and a glare that makes the middle-aged man smirks wider in enjoyment. That's the name you introduced yourself as to me and Issei. I didn't see it at first since it had no significance, but now that I have a reference, Naruto kicks the foreigner's shin. I'd have to be an idiot to not see it. Peeved. Ha 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 ha. Dirt's smirk held for a grand total of 3 seconds before it is smashes by his urge to howl in laughter. Laughter at a private joke that Naruto didn't know. This pisses the blonde off enough for him to kick the middle-aged man in the shins as well. Ah ha ha ha. It was a joke at first. Ha ha ha. But after you two took it up so well. Ah ha ha. I had to stick with it. Between short bursts of laughter, Dirt explains why he kept the made-up name and tries to dissuade the irked Naruto from kicking his shin anymore. As his laughter starts dying off, he looks at the blonde with a slight loneliness in his eyes and says, "So I guess, you'd want to know what I've dragged you into, huh?" "Not really, no." Naruto waves off the offer and blearily blinks at the man's dumbfounded look. He grins back and points at the man's chest. "I just wanted to know if a friend of mine is in trouble and if there's anything I can do to help said friend. Anything else is unneeded if that friend wants to keep it hidden. You can tell me anything or you can tell me nothing, I wouldn't mind either. As long as you come to me if you need help, I'll be happy. No, me, Kaneko, Matsuri, Issei, we'll all be happy to help, because we're friends." Ha 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 ha. The man blinks once more in befuddlement and then snorts another bout of laughter. This one didn't last as long as the last and it ended with Dirt's gratified smile at Naruto. It would seem so. Well, I'd still like to tell you the gist of the problem, so sit tight and listen carefully. Go ahead. Upon hearing that Dirt is planning on telling him the situation anyways, Naruto slouches into the park bench and pulls out a cone of ramen-flavored ice cream to enjoy while listening. Let's see, where to begin? I guess we'll start with who Oppai is. She's my shut-in older sister. She likes to stay inside the house and do nothing. One day, she went out to do an errand and quickly came back. Before she could enter the house though, I found it wise to lock the door and make her interact with the world more. She hasn't come home since. Nodding at the distorted version of the true story, Dirt pridefully tells it to the blonde next to him. Said blonde gave him a narrow-eyed deadpan. "So your sister, Oppai, decided to hire people with supernatural powers to take care of you because you locked her out?" Naruto points his cone of ice cream as the stilled foreigner besides him and raises a disbelieving eyebrow. "That's one way to say it. Though, rather than some people with supernatural powers, I think she's gone and made a whole organization." Dirt dryly laughs aloud after a sip of his coffee. "I'm not going to ask. Just let me know to help when your sister lets them loose again and if you need help." Naruto takes one last lick of the cone in his hand and chops the rest down. He then stands up and starts walking to the park's exit. "Come on, we're too late to find any good dinner and Matsuri's making a seafood hot pot ramen." Dirt raises an eyebrow when Naruto left the sleeping man on the bench but shrugs and follows after the blonde. Seafood hot pot ramen. Whatever that is, sounds nice right about now. "Earlier, well, I guess I can make it home from here. Thanks for the help earlier, Naruto," Issei says with a strained grin as he turns around and walks towards his house. From behind him, he hears Naruto's offer to walk him home but he politely rejects. He wants to deal with his problems by himself right now. As he turns several corners from the shop and was sure that the others couldn't see or was following him anymore, his shoulder sags as the burden of a near-death experience takes him in full. He grimaces as the feeling of helplessness resurfaces and feels something rise from the back of his throat. He takes a look around to find someplace he could take a seat and maybe recollect his nerves. What he found leads him to a familiar family restaurant that opened around the same time as when Naruto's shop opened. He walks in and a fairly nice-looking waitress greets him and takes him to his booth table. He orders a pot of hot tea, remembering how calming the cups served by Matsuri could be, and slumps into his cushioned seat. His thoughts returns to what had happened. He was walking home with the group, joking around like always with Naruto when he suddenly felt the urge to leave. Leave where? He did not know. He just knew he had to leave. Thinking back, that urge was very strange. In fact, he still thought it was strange even at the situation. That was the reason that he tripped himself. If it wasn't for that feeling, I would have never gotten into that near-hit incident. He swallows loudly again as the incident flashes before his eyes. His muscles tensed and he starts feeling sweat drops growing larger and larger from the pores of his back. The images of the almost hit-and-run incident flashes before his eyes and even some in-body experience of dying passes by as well. His mouth becomes drier and his breath becomes shorter. A soundless video of Matsuri panickingly calling for an ambulance and Naruto trying to get him to stay awake flashes in his eyes. Dirt is in the background holding back Kaneko from seeing the gruesome image of his to-be corpse. His hand clenches harder on the folds of his pants. The soundless video continues to grow dimmer and dimmer as the image becomes blurrier and blurrier. He lost sight of his friends one by one. First was Kaneko, then Dirt, then Matsuri, and finally, N. Here you go, sir, a pot of freshly brewed green tea. If there is anything else you would like, please don't hesitate to call me. His trance is broken when the waitress returns with a pot of steaming hot tea and a ceramic cup that doesn't look like something a family restaurant owns. He blinks and blanks out for a moment before automatically thanking the waitress for bringing his order. He pours himself a cup and quickly gulps it down, letting the burning hot pain clear up his mind. He regrets it a second later and slowly sips his next cup. Ah, that's right, it's just my hyperactive imagination. I wasn't going to die. Naruto saved me. Issei's thoughts focused on his blonde friend instead, now that he's calmed from the previous episode. He remembered that the blonde was quite far away from him when they were walking and was on high heels as well. Yet, it was Adbin the one to pull him back from the road as the car passes by with a speed far above the allowed limit. Perhaps it was just him and his warped perception of time and reality, but Naruto definitely moved too fast to save him. But here he is, safe and sound, thanks to the blonde. Thanks to Naruto. Finishing his second cup, Issei pours another one and finally tastes it seriously. It reminds him of Matsuri's calming tea, perhaps the same brand. His thoughts diverts to the waitress of the ramen shop, and then the shop's owner, and then how said owner saved him. Perhaps I should buy him a thank you gift. Thanks for saving my ass. Even though you're a bastard sometimes, you're a great friend. Would probably be what I'd put on the card. What would he like as a gift? All I know is that he likes ramen and playing pranks. Somehow, a whoopee cushion and a box of packaged instant ramen doesn't sound very sincere. Maybe I should change the phrasing of the note. Taking a deep breath and finally calming his nerves down enough after finally organizing the mess in his mind, Issei drinks the last of his tea. He puts down the cup and looks at the clock on the wall to find that quite some time has passed by. He sees the waitress that had escorted him to his seat and wonders if he should order something to eat. His parents were going out of town for a week starting a few days ago and left him enough money to get takeouts for a number of meals. As he is about to call the waitress with her back turned towards him, his cell phone vibrates and sounds out a familiar ringtone that he gave to only one person. A ringtone of a narwhal imitating Naruto's ramen eating style. He pulls out his phone in curiosity and reads the simple message. Matsuri's making seafood hot pot ramen. Get over here so that we can eat. Ramen and Dirt is also coming. Hurry. Issei smiles and stands up to pay at the cashier before quickly leaving the store and retracing his steps to the Uzumaki ramen. He texts a short reply saying that he'll be there in a moment before running towards the shop again. From the interior of the shop, the waitress that had attended Issei smiles as her phone vibrates from receiving a message. She pockets the ceramic teacup and the pot of tea that Issei had used before disappearing into the shadows without anyone's notice. Matsuri will be mad if she realizes that a major part of her favorite tea set has gone missing. Occult Research Club tick-tock tick-tock tick-tock. Every few seconds, Kaneko would look up from her snack and glance at the clock for time. The glances won't last very long and she'll go back to her snacks immediately, but in the end, she still make minuscule glances. These glances, though not very noticeable, are very easy to spot since the girl herself is usually very still. As such, it did not take others in the room very long to notice. Rias, not being one to miss out on a juicy rumor, overheard a number of gossips floating around since yesterday about a certain genius pervert in the first-year classes having multiple beautiful girls barging into his classroom and randomly hugging him, including one very cute cat-like middle schooler with white hair and golden eyes. Not wanting to cause awkwardness due to her quick judgments and faulty information, she asked Kiba to gather more descriptions of the perverted genius middle school girlfriend from his fellow first-year classmates earlier that morning. He came back at lunchtime with a stack of pictures showing three very dazzling beauties. The first is a silver-haired girl with a gentle smile that wouldn't look out of place on the face of any saint's statue. The second is a golden-haired twin-tailed girl with a smile that strangely reminds of a fox. And the third confirmed her suspicions. With a knowing smile, Rias sits in her chair drinking Akino's tea and secretly watching her rook glance at the clock in impatience. Akino, having shared theories with her king earlier at lunchtime, smiles tranquilly as the little girl before her fidgets almost imperceptibly. Though she isn't the one to cause the fidgeting, she's still taking the sight in with joy since it's her first time ever seeing the stoic middle schooler like this. Kiba, who's also in the little conspiracy happening against the smallest girl in the room, tries to act normal and reads his book on a chair in the corner. He still manages to make a few discreet glances at the girl when he thinks she's not looking. Unbeknownst to everyone, Kaneko has already noticed the glances she's been receiving the moment she first set step into the room. At first she thought nothing of it, but as time passes by, she begins to worry. Did the group already know about her newfound resolve that she has forged with Naruto? Did they want to talk about it? Did they want to know what she knows about the blonde? Though the ramen chef has given her free rein of the information she knew about him, she's decided to keep it a secret between them since she's never heard of him prior from Rias and figured that he'd want to keep his anonymity. Though she's willing to tell her king what she knows should she be ordered to, she's also inclined to keeping the blonde's secret between them. Whether out of thanks for helping her make a new resolve or out of obligations as a friend, she's willing to do it voluntarily. So, why exactly is her fellow peerage members giving her their strange looks and smiles instead of asking her questions, if they knew? Feeling extremely uncomfortable under the not-so-discreet glances, Kaneko looks at the clock once more just as it hits 6. Tick-tock. Ding-dong ding-dong. I'll be leaving. With her mouth almost breaking into a relieved smile, Kaneko packs up her materials and immediately leaves for the entrance, to escape the strange looks and smiles. As she closes the door, she gives everyone one last glance and shudders at the smirks they have on their faces. Something is definitely wrong. Her Naruto-honed trouble senses is telling her so. On the way to the front of the high school division school building, she meets a wobbling Issei walking alone towards the entrance as well. She gets into pace with him and finds out that he's held back after class due to his extracurricular activities during lunchtime with his friends. Kaneko gives him a half-hearted reprehending glare, and he at least had the decency to look impish. Together, the two walks out of the school's territory and Kaneko caught sight of a certain familiar bat flying towards the old school building. Once more, her Naruto-honed senses tingle to warn her of incoming trouble. Pack up, we're taking a trip to China, Naruto declares one day as he stands imposingly over the table. Dirt looks up from his coffee, Kaneko from her ramen-flavored snacks, Issei from his homework and Matsuri from her tea. Together in practiced synchronization they vocalized the word. It's not a well-known tradition, but this market area has its own sets of legends during July 7th. Each year, on that date, the goddess Tanabata and the farmer Mikoran meets at the highest point of the tallest bamboo tree and descends the heavens to the shop that the tree resides. In having those two eat at the shop that the tree is in, the wishes on that tree will come true and the shop will gain a year's worth of good fortune. Naruto points his thumb in the general left direction of the shop. Last year, the crappy dango shop from over 4 shops down won by a landslide with a bamboo tree that they grew since they were a child. Now, as a firm believer that ramen is the food of the gods, I will reclaim my shop's rightful place as the shop in which a goddess and her boyfriend meets up to pig out in. As he finishes his speech, everyone else puts on a complicated expression that ranges from either, "Is this guy serious?" to, "I can't believe I'm listening to this." Oi. That sounds like a bunch of folklore legends you threw together, blended in a juicer and then desecrated beyond all imaginable possibilities. Apologchlore tellers, damn it. Issei is the first to give in to his impulse as he slams one hand on the table and uses the other one to point rudely at Naruto. The blonde is completely unfazed with this accusation and retaliates with a resolute, "I shall apologize to no one until the ramen gods have been appeased by my defeating of all the others in this district." The uncompromising fire that burns in his eyes said it all. Matsuri, Dirt and Issei knows that look quite well, the look of the ever-troublesome serious Naruto. Kaneko, who had not gotten a chance to meet this form of Naruto, looked slightly put off by the look but stood her ground, chair against the overpowering pressure of the blonde's resolution. "I'll go pack the luggage for a week-long stay." Matsuri was the first to give in to the blonde's verdict and goes upstairs due to what she said she'd do, all while worrying about various things pertaining to the shop. One would think that she's the owner rather than an employee with what she has to worry about. "I'll go get the van ready." Dirt sighs and sips his coffee as he saunters out the front entrance of the shop. Somehow or another, he has obtained the position of being the group's appointed chauffeur. Not that he really minded or anything, it is fun seeing them squirm in their seats whenever he steps on the gas pedal. "I'll give my parents a call and tell them I'll be gone for a bit with you guys." Issei sighs aloud and pulls out his cell phone. He walks out the shop after the middle-aged man and asks if the man could give him a ride to his house so that he could pack some clothes as well. Dirt complied graciously and they went out together. "I'll contact my guardians." Tilting her head to the sides in slight puzzlement at the group's quickness to go with the blonde's idea, she pulls out her phone and starts calling her king while walking out the door as well. Rias will probably allow her to take a trip as long as she promises not to do anything idiotic. If anything happens, the high-class devil can teleport to her location immediately anyways. Somewhere in China. A random bamboo forest. "Kaneko, over here." Issei yells as he ducks behind a large pile of rocks with a hail of flying needles following him only to impotently bounce off of the rocks. Kaneko follows the brunette and barely makes it to the covers of the rocks before her own rain of needles strikes hits the stone pile. She tunes her heightened senses and waits until the sounds of needle throws stops before whipping her head to the side, just out of the rock's protective covering, and accurately shoots 4 tranquilizing darts from her makeshift bamboo blow dart gun. As the darts hits, she feels a small surge of pride for her accomplishment before it's crushed by the sense of shame for actually landing herself into this ridiculous situation to begin with. "Shoot, they're circling us. Come on, Kaneko." Issei, who's on high surveillance with the data that Matsuri's streaming to him constantly, sees a dozen dots moving in an oval shape, encircling in on his and Kaneko's current position. He tugs his white-haired partner in crime's arm to break her out of her remorseful reverie before breaking into a run for their next cover, a large patch of bamboo clusters. The white-haired girl blinks for a moment and then nods in affirmation before taking her role behind the brunette. Whether he knows it or not, she has been the one to cover them by blocking the flying needle strikes with her iron skin. A byproduct of using both her Rook's gifted power and Naruto's steady senjutsu lessons. As they do a flying body lunge towards the cover of the bamboo grooves, numerous loud booms exploded from the rock pile formation where they last hid. The sound of enemies screaming in anguish rang through the air, and the laughter of a certain ardently devoted member of the Ramen cult rang even louder, far more gleefully than what should be allowed in the situation. Pest control finished. All stunned and disabled. Sector 14 captured. Where to next, leader? Naruto's voice comes from the headset that each member of the raiding group has on, and Matsuri answers immediately. Job well done, Private Naruto-sama. The next location for attacking is up north, approximately 20 meters from the bamboo forest. Scale the walls and infiltrate while the enemies are working to gain back control. Hurry, you have approximately 10 minutes. Will do, keep up the updates. Ramen, Oppai, we need to move. With that said, the blonde rushes off in a random direction to do his job of making loud distractions for the rest of his team. How the hell did this happen? Following shortly after the blonde, Issei wonders out loud as he pulls on the uncomfortable collar of his normal camouflage gears. The word normal is stressed because unlike Naruto, whose definition of camouflage is bright neon orange, theirs is a dark shade of bamboo green. No idea. Kaneko helplessly shrugs as well, since she too didn't know when things became so strange. Yesterday was quite normal really. They landed in some province of China early morning and toured around the area for a bit. They ate some of the local dishes, took a few pictures, and even bought a few interesting looking souvenirs before renting out a large hotel room with 2 king-sized beds, one for her and Matsuri, the other for Dirt and Issei, and Naruto went out, information gathering. This morning wasn't that strange either. Naruto, who had a suspiciously large sports bag that she now knows was filled with Dirt's approved tranquilizing weapons, invited her and Issei out for some quick breakfast and a walk through a famous local bamboo forest. The first half hour of the walk was surprisingly calming and relaxing, so it still confuses her as to how the situation devolved so quickly into this. Kaneko-san, Issei-kun. Naruto-sama is tasked with the job of spreading enemies thin again. They regrouped faster than I had anticipated. Please continue to go straight and continue the mission. I will send you a map of the best route to take. Matsuri's voice comes through again and updates the group on the situation. Apparently, she and Dirt are the brains of the operation. Got it, thanks Matsuri. Oi Naruto, you so owe me free ramen for this. Come back safely so that I can get my pay. Issei clumsily wishes the blonde good luck and runs straight ahead with a slight blush to his cheeks. Good luck. Tying a headband onto his forehead, Naruto loads grenade bullets into his rotary grenade launcher and gives them a thumbs up. He then runs off into another direction, his neon orange wear blending into green surprisingly well seconds later. How far is it? Kaneko asks while following after Issei. For obvious reasons, to her and Naruto, Issei is put as the information technician of the group while she is the brawler to anyone who gets past Naruto. Next to Matsuri and Dirt, Issei is the leading commander in charge of the operation, according to Naruto. According to the map, it's just up ahead, Issei says as he looks at the tablet he pulled from his knapsack. Immediately after he says that, the two rushes out of the bamboo forest to see an open gate with a flashy "Welcome" sign right next to it. Suspicious was the first thought that screams into their mind. The seconds was to dodge, aka get the heck out, as a giant shadow looms above and a large creature falls from the sky and lands just where they were. Boom! Smoke and dust kicks up from where the unidentified large being lands, and Issei takes that moment to fall back with Kaneko, both taking out the gear that Naruto armed them with to fight off enemies. Issei's gear is a futuristic-looking tranquilizing gun of sorts that Dirt guaranteed has a 100% hit rate, and Kaneko's is a pair of boxing gloves that has a shocking punch. Both took up their ready pose as a gust of wind wipes away the dust in the air to show an extremely muscled man wearing something that you'd see in an old Chinese martial arts movie. He even had the Fu Manchu and all. So you two are the what we've safeguarded for over 1,000 years. The man booms in perfect Japanese with an energetic hint to his voice. He towers over the two and they flinch at his crushing gaze. Before they could say anything, however, Naruto rushes out of the forest as well towards the large man, his shirt missing and his gun gone. In the name of my god, I shall be demanding this year's bamboo tree, lariat. Serious Naruto meets eyes with the towering giant and slams a wide haymaker at the man's throat. The man lifts up both his arms upwards to block the move before twisting one of his blocking arm to grab the blonde's offending limb and makes to throw him. Naruto retaliated by slamming one of his foot into the man's face mid-throw and leaps off after the man releases him. He lands in front of his two partners and without taking his eyes off of the man, the blonde speaks to the two behind him. Ramen, Oppai, hurry. The two didn't need any more words of instruction as they immediately listens to the blonde's words and dashes off. From behind them, the sounds of fist colliding with fist resounded throughout the temple ground and the bamboo forest. Once inside the gate, they followed Matsuri's map and make numerous twists and turns, going through many doors and pathways. Issei got extremely proficient in hitting enemies on sight with his sure hit gun, and Kaneko uses her instinct to take out anyone that tried a sneak attack in close combat. Together, they quickly navigated the catacomb of the temple ground quickly. As they turn the last corner, their eyes are momentarily blinded by an amazing sight. Before them, a single graceful bamboo stalk that screams of holiness stood in the empty field. Kaneko and Issei looks dubiously at each other as they had no idea what to do. A grouped sneak attack from earlier had took out their headgear, and Matsuri never told them what to do should they have made it this far. Kaneko shrugs and nudges Issei forward to touch the tree. If it's nearly as holy as it looks, then she should definitely not be the one touching it. The brunette gives her a raised eyebrow and she shrugs again before turning to the entrance, to keep guard. Issei nervously trudges forward to the bamboo tree and hesitantly reach out. He touches it and feels a cool smooth feeling in his palm before the tree explodes into 1,000 grains of fine golden powder and something shoots upwards from the remains of the tree. Was all he could say as firework explosions appear continuously in the air for a whole minute. Soon after that, the ground trembles and quake and the walls around them shake. Kaneko swiftly returns to his side and enters a boxing stance as he looks at his hand, which had instinctively grabbed some golden dust. The walls fall to show a large crowd of people, all applauding them, some cheering, some booing, and others with a grudging look in their eyes. Issei and Kaneko blink owlishly at this and stood stock still. The massive man from earlier in the ancient Chinese robe comes up from the crowd and grabs both Kaneko's wrist and Issei's wrist and raises them both up into the air while declaring loudly in two languages at the same time. The victor of the 143rd Bamboo Temple contest is Team Cult Ramen. The man then lets go of their wrists and let their hands go limp by their sides as the crowd renewed their applause, making the temple echo with clapping. He turns around and gets on one knee with a huge smile on his face. Congratulations, foreigners. You have fought valiantly and shall claim your prize. Both Kaneko and Issei continued looking at the massive man stupidly, as if not understanding his words even though he was speaking in their language. Before they could say any more, however, the massive man stood up and they were crushed by a group hug consisting of 3 people. Ha ha ha. Good job, guys. You did the ramen gods proud out there. One of the huggers, Naruto, energetically laughs as he moves to hold Issei in a headlock. It seems that he's found his upperwear again somewhere during the fight with the giant, who congratulated them. Excellent work, you two. Matsuri gives the both of them a huge smile, almost equaling Naruto's, and a quick hug before handing them a bottle of refreshingly cool water and a towel to wipe off their sweat. She has on her normal wear with a neon orange camouflage jacket draped over her shoulder. You used those tools like a true soldier. This old man is proud to have lead you, privates. Dirt jokingly says while squeezing both their shoulders with just the right amount of pressure to be reassuring. The man had went full out like Naruto and was wearing classic soldier wear, caps, boots and all, even though his only job is to sit next to Matsuri and drink coffee. Come, the prize that you seek is awaiting up this path. The large man in the Chinese robes allowed us a moment of reunion before walking towards a random pathway on the temple ground. Naruto, with a wide grin on his lips, slung an arm over both Issei's and Kaneko's shoulder before following the man. Dirt and Matsuri quickly took up to following behind the blonde. What's happening? As they walked down the corridor behind the Chinese giant, Kaneko found it in herself to recover from the strange happenings first and asks the question of the day. Issei recoups soon after and nods in agreement with the white-haired girl's question. Matsuri, who was right behind the middle school girl, tilts her head and questioning and asks in return. Did Naruto-sama not tell you what we were doing? It was an innocent question from a completely innocent bystander involved in the fiasco, but it caused a strong impact. Together as one, Kaneko and Issei both whips their head towards one location and glares heatedly at the person residing inside that general location. Ah, I knew I forgot something when we were getting breakfast. Taking his arms off of their shoulder, Naruto loosely hangs his left arm to the side while using his right hand to scratch his cheek abashedly. His cheek grows a slight blush when he notices his two side companions' glare increasing in intensity and feels the burning sensation of Matsuri's reprimanding frown on his back. He takes a step ahead of the group, turns around, and as he closes his right hand into a fist, he lightly knocks it onto the top of his head, winks his left eye at Kaneko and Issei and says, "Ah, how do I say this? Sorry I forgot, Tahepero." Both the white-haired girl and the brunette grew a comical red vein on their foreheads as they too clenches their hands. Naruto notices immediately and wisely retreats by standing nearer to the intimidating Chinese giant. The two huffs in annoyance as one as well, and both turns towards Matsuri with a question in their eyes. The silver-haired waitress of Uzumaki Ramen sighs in exasperation before taking up her teacher's pose, something that came with becoming a pseudo-teacher in Kuo Academy when pranking Issei, and starts explaining. Yesterday, when he was out gathering information, Naruto-sama went around town to ask if there was a location he could buy living bamboo stalks from, and he got instructions about a contest for the highest quality bamboo of this region. Supposedly, these bamboo stalks are offsprings of a 1,000-year-old bamboo tree that has great qualities to it, requiring 10 years to plant and cultivate. Originally in ancient times, the contest was held between different martial arts clans to see who was the strongest clan, but as time passes on, this tradition became more of a free-for-all race with tranquilizing weapons allowed. There is a bit more technical details to it that I'm still uncertain about, but I'm sure Naruto-sama can give a better description of the race's objectives. With a slightly vexed smile, Matsuri tilts her head and finishes informing the two students of what they were doing the whole time. So that was why they were attacking us. All for a bamboo tree? Twitching his eyebrow uncontrollably, Issei starts his head to see if that'll appease the twitching. Kaneko silently agrees and decides to look at it from another perspective. At least she's getting some experience for future raiding games, sort of. It's not any bamboo tree, you know, it's a super bamboo tree. The Chinese giant helpfully inputs from up ahead. Issei twitches at the sight of the giant fist bumping Naruto like old friends. So how are we going to take the tree home? I'm sure that we won't make it to Japan and prepare everything in time for Tanabata if we're going through the regular airports like how we came here. Issei gives up on rubbing his head and decides to focus on the reason he was stuck in this situation in the first place, besides the obvious answer of, because of a certain blonde. Ah, you don't have to worry about that. I've offered Naruto-san to give everyone a ride back to Japan and he accepted. Dirt's cheery voice rang in on the conversation and its topic completely stops Matsuri and Issei in their tracks. Kaneko pauses to look as well when she sees the silver head and brunette mechanically turn their head towards Dirt, who's holding up a thin card. A flying license card. Uzumaki Ramen click click. Slam, ding a lane. Matsuri, prepare the decorations and open the shop. Kaneko, get some rest. Dirt, try to revive Issei. I'll go make some ramen for lunch. Opening the door to his ramen shop roughly, Naruto staggers in with a large bamboo tree on his shoulder and a bag of bamboo branches in his hand. Behind him Matsuri and Kaneko walks in with unsteady legs, leaning heavily on each other, as if their continuation depended on each other's support. Trailing after those two is Dirt and Issei. Dirt is casually sipping his coffee with a shiny sheen to his face while Issei isn't really moving, or breathing. Apologies, Naruto-sama, I will have to postpone until recovery is made. As Naruto slams the bamboo tree on his shoulder down in the middle of the shop. Matsuri leans Kaneko down into her seat and takes a seat herself. Dirt does the same with Issei and takes the television remote to turn to a comedy channel. 30 minutes later, Naruto comes out with 5 large bowls of freshly made bamboo ramen and spreads them out to the group. Issei manages to revive himself due to hunger after Kaneko's 3rd bowl and Naruto's 5th bowl. They spend the rest of the day doing nothing but laze around the table, recuperating. At around 7 or 8, when the sun completely disappears from the sky, they each slowly gets up from their spots and pull out a blank piece of paper to write on and hang off of the haphazardly placed tree in the middle of the shop. Of course, since there is a festival going on around them, the group wanders outside to join the festivity, Naruto forgetting his job of manning his own shop. They spent the rest of the night goofing around the various stalls at the shopping district and having dinner out as well. They each left after their own farewells and departed towards their respective houses from Uzumaki Ramen when the clock ticks midnight. I'll be going. Thank you for treating me to dinner. With a roasted squid held in her mouth, Kaneko bows down slightly and leaves with her large bag of toys and snacks. I'll be going as well, it's been a fun day. Have a good night everyone. With a wave of his hand, Dirt turns around and walks to where he last parked his van. Yawn. Damn, there's school tomorrow too. Good night you too. With drooping eyes and a loud yawn, Issei walks off towards his house with a festival mask that he bought earlier between his hand. I'll prepare the futons. Remember to sleep soon Naruto-sama, it's been a long day. Matsuri warmly advises her blonde roommate after walking into the shop and heading towards the stairs. Seeing him nod once in acknowledgement, she walks up the flight of steps and leaves her caretaker to do what he wishes. So it was true. After waiting for Matsuri to at least open the door to their shared room, Naruto walks up towards the table that he and the others usually occupy, past the newly acquired bamboo tree that is noticeably missing the wishes tied to it earlier. He makes it to the table and narrows his eyes to see the objects in front of each chair and 2 empty ramen bowl in the middle of the table. He picks up the note tied under the ramen bowl and reads it in his mind. Thanks for the ramen, it tasted great. As a gift, I try granting the wishes on the tree to the best of my ability. Have fun with them. Sign, Goddess of Reunion, Tanabata. Putting the note down, he looks at the objects on the table. The wishes were placed in order with each seat's usual occupant. Starting from the left with Dirt's, I want a completely new extraordinary way of making coffee. Wish. A book named, New Extraordinary Way of Making Coffee, and a note reading, I hope you like it, was left on the wish tag. Next to it is his own wish of wanting to protect his friend. The gift he got is a gun with 4 full cartridges of bullets. For some reason, Naruto is really doubting Tanabata's goodwill. Sitting innocently alongside his gun gift is Matsuri's wish for world peace. The goddess left a note that says, that's super hard. How about inner peace instead? Here's a goddess certified love charm, and in pink omamori with the kanji for love on it. Rounding the table's corner, Kaniko's wish for being able to understand Ne-sama better is paired with a book that's titled, How to Get Closer with Your Close Ones for Dummies. Besides Kaniko's wish is Issei's not so surprising, I want to become a harem king. The goddess answers seriously with a note that says, start by being friends first, and another omamori with the kanji for friendship on it. Hee. Naruto chuckles at each gifts and gathers them up to put under the television cabinet. Once he closes the cabinet, he yawns loudly and walks upstairs to join his roommate. Too bad Tanabata didn't stick around. He gets a feeling she might be a good conversationalist in the arts of pranking.